go live. And let me make sure that the volume's turned off here. There we go. Okay. Nice. Hello everyone, and welcome. As some of you may have known, we kind of jump right into these just so that for the YouTube recording, it can show the comments on the side. So if you still want to say hi and where you're watching from, Josh will still do shout outs while we're kind of doing our warm up. But just so you know, we're going to get going. So if you guys can pull out kind of your paper, your tools, and if you're working digitally, your Cintiq, whatever it is, we're going to break this up into a 10-minute warm-up session, and then it's going to be 3 30-minute hand studies. So that means we have 3 hands, and you get 30 minutes each for a total of 90 minutes, and then we will do a critique afterwards. Ooh. So I guess to start off, hi everyone, I'm Timothy Von Rueden, better known as Von Art Online, and I'm joined by my boyfriend Josh.
Hello.
He will be our lovely moderator. So if you have any comments or questions or just want to chat, please put @VonArt, and that way Josh can see it, and that way we can keep the conversation going. And it doesn't necessarily have to be what we are working on, which are hands today. If you want to talk about anything regarding either art or the business of art, or even something silly like movies or games, whatever, it's kind of a fair game, and we're free to talk about whatever. So if you want to get all of your supplies ready, let me get my stuff all set here. I found the page of hands from our last hand stream, because initially I was going to do a hand tutorial stream, but I realized I already did something like that. So you can find a link to that one below if you're looking for more of like understanding the structure of hands, where this one's going to be like a pure study of hands. And you can download the reference of the 3 hands that we'll be working on. So as you can see in the bottom left corner under me and Josh here, we have these 3 hands. But those are going to be for the real actual studies. But for the warm-up, I would honestly suggest just going to Pinterest and typing in hands, or even Google search, and we're going to be doing some random ones. And the point of the warm-up is to keep it loose, keep it fluid, and get your hand kind of in the motion of drawing. And try to keep it as undetailed as possible. So try to really get the structure, maybe some shading, maybe some value, and then move on to another one, because we want to get more efficient with our drawings, and these studies are hopefully meant to help you guys with that. So, okay, are you ready for this?
Ooh, all these hands.
And I guess quickly, hello everyone. And let's see here. Oh, Tigel's here today.
Yeah,
hello Tigel.
Like we've
it's
not
good
seen
to see
you in a little bit. Hope you've been doing good.
All right, and then here's a timer for you, Shua.
Okay. Ooh, I have the hardest job today.
I guess before really quick, I want to say that I got this in the mail this morning. It's the new Will Terry book, the What They Don't Teach in Art School. So I honestly 20 minutes before this started. So I'll be reading this. It'll probably take me a while because I'm a slow reader, but I will let you guys know if this is worth buying, and if it's something that I would consider worth it as an artist who wants to also make a living out of it. So I got that, and then also I finished the last page of my book. So this is going to be the back cover, and my book should be on Kickstarter probably like mid to late April. So I'm really excited about that. And okay, that's all I got. Let's jump into this. All right, guys, ready?
Get the fingers ready.
Josh, I'm giving you control of the mouse here. Once you start it though, I might have to scroll on Pinterest a little bit.
It's scooched.
Here, wait, I can fix that quickly. I guess you guys have a little extra time to
pull up some more reference photos.
Right. What was that? Oh, it was, there we go.
Drag the other side. Oh, shoo.
There we go.
Oh my gosh.
All right, sorry about that. That was me.
All right, ready? 3.
You got this, guys.
2, 1. Let the warm-ups begin.
Beautiful. So now let me make sure I'm on screen. Oh yeah, and Josh, if I ever get off screen, I'm gonna need you to let me know.
All right. Yeah, I'll let you know.
So doing these warm-ups, I normally tend to try to keep it, or I try to start detailing right away, which is a big problem of mine. So I'm trying more and more to get comfortable doing like loose sketching to start up, and especially for warm-up stuff. It's not always the easiest for me. I have a tendency to want to go in and detail right away. But what I'm looking for when I'm looking at my reference, I'm trying to do some quick shape kind of layouts, and then I'll maybe look at like the shadows and give that some edging.
Anthony, hello. Felix, hello. Julie, roll. Get everyone who's like here right off the bat. Enrico, hello. Jonathan, hello.
Hey, Liddell.
Buds.
Or a
Alice,
different Jonathan.
hello. Jonathan Liddell.
Oh, hello, Jonathan.
There's only one Jonathan.
I just feel like I know so many Jonathans. Not even Johns. I know a lot of Jonathans.
Jonathans.
Isn't that weird?
Anthony, for the stream, I'm going to be polishing up the letters from my title and making the background look more woodish. Nice. Excited to see that. You can always share that too afterwards too. It's fun to see the progress of that. Tigel. How handy is it to have reference on hand? You must be very hands-on once you have the hand tools on hand. Could you help me? Could you help me a hand? That would be handy. Thanks.
Tigel,
Glad you're here, Tigel.
I hope you had that written down like before the stream, was ready to click enter.
But Tigel says, hey, thanks. Yes, it's been a while. Everything was okay. Just a bit down because of all the corona stuff, but that'll pass.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, just know, Tigel, it's tough. And I think it's okay if you needed to take like a mental break and if you need time for yourself. I mean, even not even outside of drawing, just even in your own life. I think it's okay to like take a little bit and kind of regather, refocus, and, you know, take some time. These are the worst hand warm-ups I have ever seen from me. Okay, I gotta pick it up. Come on, Tim. Let's do a tricky one. Or no, let's do, okay, that one. So normally when I'm doing these kind of warm-ups, also I try to find the pentagon in the hand. And something that's kind of important to note is usually with the fingers, you really don't see the top digit of the finger, the nub, bend as much as the first knuckle, or I guess the second knuckle technically. And I see a lot of hands where like they have these fingers, these digits bent in their drawings.
Like uncomfortable almost.
Yeah, but I guess something that I learned with hands is try to keep the second part of the hand just pretty straight for the most part. Like you can have it kind of bent if it's like, obviously if the hand's bending, but if the fingers are more straight, I would not try to bend that second digit in a drawing. I think it just looks really uncomfortable.
You can't really bend that one without
I know.
the other one being bent.
But do you know how many drawings I see with that one bent?
I guess I could force it, but
I think it's just one of those things where as you draw more from reference, you learn more. And also, since I shouldn't say everyone has hands, because there are some people that don't have hands. But for the most part, I feel like you can use your own hand as a reference. And if you want a specific pose, put your hand in that reference. And if it doesn't feel comfortable and if it's really awkward, I would not use that pose because more often than not, your drawing is going to read as awkward as well.
Rose says, I think your art is so beautiful. Thank you for being such a cool and supportive artist in our community. You rock.
Well, thank you. I feel like I've gotten a lot of love from the art community in the past like couple months, and I'm really thankful back. So thank you for checking out my work.
Felix, definitely let me know if the book is worth just a few more months until I finish my CS degree and can dedicate my time to art only. Oh. Felix, that's exciting.
Felix, I have so much faith in you.
Well, aren't you, because you're looking at maybe, you said freelancing, I thought too. So there's going to be a lot of like fun changes in your life coming.
Mm-hmm.
Scary, but I think exciting though too.
It's funny how I feel so much older when I forget that people are still going to school and doing all this stuff, because most of my friends and all of the people I talk with that are artists are like well into their late 20s, if not into their like mid 30s, honestly. So it's kind of exciting hearing like the new adventures of a young artist again.
Fidgety Fox is here. It's been a bit. Hey guys, finally catching another live stream. It's been forever. So nice to see you guys again.
Hello.
Good to see you here again too. Fem's here.
Hey Fem.
bit late. I had to do some grocery shopping after work. Hope you guys are doing all right. Yeah, we're doing good.
Yeah, honestly, I'm doing great.
We get our groceries delivered to the house now. So it's kind of nice once in a while. We don't do it all the time.
I was gonna say, not always. Yeah. That makes it sound like we never leave.
We just do, right? But it has been kind of nice right now instead of having to go out. But how are you doing, Fen?
Let's see. Well, I feel like I've been having a great time because my book is finally finished. So I feel like I can get back into drawing other stuff again. And
you've been able to just play Final Fantasy X, kind of do things outside of the book, which has been nice now.
Yeah, so I told myself if I finished my book in January, besides the cover, because I need the template, I was going to reward myself by playing Final Fantasy X. And I'm like a good, I want to say like 15 hours in at this point. And I'm really excited because it's not like a nostalgia thing where I thought it was good when I was a kid, and then as you play it as an adult, you're like, oh gosh, no, this did not age well. Because I kind of had a similar experience with Digimon when I tried rewatching it as an adult, and I was like, oh no, I don't think this carries the same soul that it did.
Oh, Digimon.
But I will say it has been, I still love the designs of so much of the Digimon, and I still think it influenced me so much, especially as a boy looking at like the proportions of these crazy things. And since I loved Halloween, Digimon really killed it with the villain design, like Devimon or Myotismon or Piedmon. Like they're all these Halloween-y type characters in my mind, but like super cool proportions and looks to them. All right, let me do, how much time we got? 2 minutes? Oh, I can do that. Okay. Let's see how...
Tichel, in reference to his puns earlier, says, I didn't have it written down beforehand. Sorry, I'm a bit of a handful.
Get out of here.
Living for this. Leon says, hello, new here. Thanks for putting this on. Of course.
Absolutely. I mean, I want to do even more with these come March, because we're going to have more of a recording studio downstairs. Yeah, right. And I would love to do a life drawing session. Obviously, I don't think me or Josh would be the ones modeling, but they have these websites where you can basically do a life drawing session. And I have done this in the past, especially when I worked with CG Cookie, but I want to do that again because I haven't been able to go to a life drawing session, obviously because of COVID. And I really do believe that's where you learn the most in terms of proportion and anatomy. And
I don't know, everyone can learn another side of me.
Josh will be our nude model. But yeah, that's something I do want to do. So possibly even later in March, because we need the downstairs set up.
1 minute left.
Okay, let me get one more hand in. Hope you guys have been doing good with these warm-ups. I'll do this tricky one here.
Christina says, thank you for the session. I've never tried to focus on drawing hands because I fear them so much.
Oh, yeah.
They're tricky.
Hands are...
When I watch you do this, I'm always... It's the proportions I don't even realize. I don't know. You think just drawing hands like, all right, 5 little stumps, but...
No. Yeah. Hands are by far one of the most complicated parts on a human body for drawing. And it's one of those that can really separate someone from being more of a novice artist to more of a, I want to say skilled or like professional artist, but you definitely, I feel like every artist goes through a phase where they hide hands behind the back or in the pockets, and then at some point they become confident enough to take them out of the pockets.
Oh my gosh,
that is loud.
That is a really loud beat. All right. You know what? I can hear the sound off on it.
Well, we might need the sound. I would keep the sound on, yeah.
I mean, I'll be looking at it, but I'll keep it on just in case.
We've had troubles on the browse. So I think doing studies with things like hands, if I'm still working, is good because I think this is something that you can carry with you, especially if you're someone that is a character artist or likes drawing figures or portraits. You don't realize how much a hand can enhance or give more meaning to the composition, the pose, the feeling, and it's something that I think is something you shouldn't overlook. So I'm glad you're here, and I'm glad you all are trying to draw hands with me today. Okay, so I hope your warm-up's pretty good. Let me see. I'm gonna move this board out of the way. Okay, move that. Get my hand reference back on. Okay, so in this we're gonna change to 30 minutes. So what we'll probably do is for each one, we're gonna do a 30-minute session, and then we'll take probably like a minute or two break in between. So if you have to go to the bathroom, grab a cup of water, whatever you need to do. I'm kind of setting these up like a real classroom setup, or at least the way when I went to school, this is kind of how we did it as well. So don't feel like you can't go to the bathroom or can't get up. Let me find a piece of paper here. Oh, are these all used? Oh wait, here's my sketch. And I'll primarily be working with a 2H. It's a really light pencil, so in case I need to erase or edit on the fly. But you can use whatever tool you want, even if you're working digital or with watercolor, whatever you are challenging yourself with today. And then remember that we have the critique session at the end if you want some of my feedback. Okay, are we ready for our first 30-minute hand here?
All right. Timer is ready.
Okay, everyone.
Pencils at the ready.
Mm-hmm.
All right. 3, 2, and 1.
Wondering how I want to draw these.
Oh, yeah, and just a reminder too, if you want a big full screen picture of the reference, it is on Discord as well.
Yes, so the 3 references are on the Discord channel under the Stream Follow Along channel. Wonder if I want to do these like up, down, or left, right. Actually, I'll do these left, right.
Anthony, growing as an artist, did you ever see a professional call his work sucky, yet it looks way better than yours? Because that's you right now.
Kind of a lot, actually. I feel like every artist kind of goes through this thing where they just don't feel like they're art. I mean, I'm sure you guys have heard of imposter syndrome. Oh, this is so far away. Hold on. Let me zoom. There we go. That's a little better.
I'll try to keep an eye on that for you too.
Yeah, thank you. And it's basically where you feel like your success is unqualified or unvalidated. Or not unvalidated, unworthy almost, because you feel like you somehow cheated your way to gaining whatever form of success you have achieved. And I mean, even artists that I really admire will still look at some of their work and think it's really crappy, or I mean, heck, even Corey Godby and Justin Gerard, who I consider excellent artists, each on their own accord, they do a burning ceremony at the end of every year where they burn all their old drawings that they felt were weak. And it's like this cleansing process. I've always been very attracted to that idea, but never have done it myself, honestly. So yeah.
That'd be weird.
Also, I want to point out for this hand specifically, be aware of the webbing in between the first and fourth finger. Because oftentimes I see not enough emphasis on the webbing, and the fingers in between look way too short and the fingers look way too long then because of it.
Definitely, we are our own worst critics.
Mm-hmm.
It's like a good and bad thing, I feel like, right? Would you say it can be a good thing in a way too?
It's good. Well, I consider it good because I feel like then I'm never satisfied with my work, in the sense that I always feel like I can do better. I always can improve. I know for some people this can be crippling and almost can push them into the realm of not wanting to do art at all because it's so daunting, of feeling like not good enough. So I can see why it can be horrible. You know what? This hand is such a weird size. No, you know what? I'm gonna make it work. We're gonna just move things around, I think. So try to see it more as a competitive within yourself thing, where you're looking at your work and be like, okay, I can clearly see that there's some mistakes in here. What can I work on in my next study of a hand or whatever it is that you were working on? And then try to really hit that on your next try. Because otherwise it can be really, it can be really sad. And you look at your work and you'll be like, I just am awful. I'm never gonna get good. I suck. I hear that a lot, or I always hear something along the lines of, I try so hard but never get anywhere. I don't have the natural talent. I don't have that special thing that those great artists have. I mean, just remember, these are just people, and they're just people that, have failed many, many times to get to where they are, and you can definitely be one of those people as well. There's nothing special about them besides maybe they, put a lot more time in when they were in their early 20s, or they're more constructively critical of their own work, so they're able to adjust and improve their own work. All right, this is the worst start to the hand. Maybe get a question going. I'm going to try to focus on the fundamental of this hand.
Corey says, did you back Lisa's art book on Kickstarter? Got mine in the mail yesterday.
Oh, I did. I haven't got it yet, but of course I did because I love her work.
All these mail goodies you're getting lately.
Well, it's like all these Kickstarters that were from last year.
Yeah. It's like a fun surprise. Dayton says, loving this. I love it if you were able to do a session on face studies and how you draw them in your style.
I mean, yeah. Literally, these Wednesday streams, I'm kind of dedicating with Josh all of 2021 as of now to do more of these kind of draw along, follow along study sessions where we draw together, and I definitely see faces being somewhere on the list of things I want to tackle.
Cool. I'm going to add that to our little list too. So we have a list going to some stream ideas. We have animals, create a creature, texture studies, specifically to 4 elements, and then face studies. So we have a good little list going now. Rose Evergreen says, I'm just starting on Instagram. Been doing art self-taught since I was 12. It's almost 10 years now. Also earning a systems engineering degree at the same time. It's wild. 2 very different fields, but I think that's really cool that you're sticking with art still through that even.
I'm glad that you're still hanging in it with that level of commitment to both. Okay, so I'm definitely one of the type of artists that will try to get a good clean outline and then kind of work within. This is not the academic way of doing things, and I totally understand that this is something I probably shouldn't be teaching, because usually you want to like break down the digits into shapes, and I do agree with a lot of that, but I think I'm at that point in my career where I really want to focus on cleaning and refining my own style, which I guess I should be doing more of the academic way of doing things then. But I think with these studies, I'm kind of exploring like, what is my process? Why do I do this the way I do? And I'm sure a lot of you are kind of finding that out as you're drawing these hands alongside me here. Like, are you the type of person to have more of a bigger gesture drawing before you start laying down anything on top?
Tigel's heading out. Gotta go eat. Maybe I'll be back in a while. Tigel, so good to see you today.
Bye, Tigel. Hope you're doing well.
I'm feeling a bit better now that I get out of the house for work. That does probably help a little bit, just to like have sort of a normal routine back in a way. And now I feel like I'm struggling to find time for my creative work since I'm exhausted after a work day in the kitchen job. Hopefully you can find some energy too with these. I think the streams are nice because at least we're all like working together. But even if you're just here to hang out, we like having you here. Dayton says also if you'd be able to share where you get references from, that would be amazing.
I love art books. it's probably my favorite thing to pull for referencing. I mean, if I need to, I'll definitely go to Pinterest. But I have a bunch of art books, and I mean, Josh has seen me pull a bunch of them out in the front room all the time.
Tim looks like a, I don't know, a scholar, because he'll come out with like a pile of them.
There's just something about, and honestly, this is kind of more of a 2021 thing that I've been trying out for myself, is I'm really just not a fan of screens anymore. And in like the very vague sense of televisions, computers, phones, iPad, I'm trying to get away from that as much as I can, because I realize, one, I find myself from time to time like on my phone, and I'll just aimlessly be scrolling for like an hour, and I have to catch myself and be like, what are you doing? Like, where did my time go this past hour? And I was even telling Josh, it's been kind of sad because I am a huge lover of film and movies, and I've seen so many. But for some reason recently, I'm just not getting the same joy that I used to out of them. And I think it's because it goes back to the idea that I'm like just looking at a screen. So I'm experimenting with trying not to look at screens as much. And I feel like my art kind of helps that, because since I'm primarily a pencil artist, I can find that all I really need is a pencil and a sketchbook to still be able to do my work and still find, that place of solace and peace. So that's something I'm going to keep testing out. I will say the thing that has really helped me probably the most is my phone. I mean, I guess it's right here. It's the thing that's actually recording right now. But I try not to have it around me at all if I'm working, or especially when we have friends over. I mean, I am trying very much to not even really check it. I mean, if someone's calling me for an emergency, like they'll call Josh, so like I'm not too worried. But I don't know, maybe if that helps any of you guys maybe this is the sign that you needed, that maybe you're spending too much time on screens.
Yeah, I feel like a little bit of that too is just maybe a little bit of the COVID fatigue now, of it's like we're not able to go out and do things or go to cons or do things that are keeping us busy. So I don't know, I feel like screens kind of is what people default to then, because it's like we're at home anyways. So maybe getting kind of almost bored of it in a way too.
I mean, probably.
Yeah.
Well, and it was, I don't know, what was it, last Friday or something? I had this really weird night where I just didn't want any screen in front of me. I was going to watch a show or something, and I decided instead to just wander around the house and just literally look and observe at things. And at one point, I laid my head in the closet and looked up, and I looked at the pattern that the shirts created underneath, and it was like this wavy, cool pattern.
Oh yeah.
And I was like, man, I would have never noticed this or even thought to come in here and just look at the room from a different angle if I wasn't in this weird no screen mode. And I really liked it. And I actually even read that night, and I read like 30 pages of a book, and I rarely read. But it felt really nice. I still cherish that night quite a bit.
Tim's so cute because I went up in the bedroom and he was like, Josh, put your head under here. And I was like literally shoving my head into the closet underneath all the clothes.
Mm-hmm.
But you know what? I kind of saw that when you're talking about. It was actually kind of cool.
I want to draw it at some point. I don't know if it'll be like a skirt or some kind of a dress for a crazy character, but I love the pattern that it created. And also, you know what I really enjoyed? Just silence. Just being in our back room. We have a big glass back room, and it was really dark. We just had like a couple of our string lights on, so I was getting like a little speckle of light here and there, but for the most part it was really dark. But it was just silent, and it was really nice just observing the room in silence, because I felt like that was how I looked around like my grandparents' house when I was younger. After everyone was sleeping, I would just get up and wander the house. I was one of those kids where I don't know, I loved looking at things, but I didn't want people knowing I was looking at things, so I would just kind of do it while either people were sleeping, or my family, I should say. And that's what it reminded me of. And it was really nice, because it was like I got to see the reflection of the gold gilding on some of the art books I have, and you can kind of see from the candlelight that I had how it like creates this inflection of light off of the gold. And it was just, I don't know, it was like one thing after the next that I kept noticing. I'm like, God, I never noticed stuff like this anymore. But anyways, I'm ranting at this point.
Oh, you're good. You're good. I feel like I got behind 2 questions. Munich says, okay, question already. How do you make sure the spaces between the fingers are right and the fingers are the right proportion? I often have the palm, and then where I am at 3 fingers, the palm ends where I have 5 fingers, and there's still palm without finger.
Okay, so I mean, I have more of this in the tutorial, which you can find below, about how to draw hands. But essentially, when I'm looking at a hand like this one, for instance, I am looking at finding what is known as the hand pentagon. So in this case, this would be the pentagon. So this would be the wrist. And then your thumb should be an outshoot of this here. And then these are where the 4 fingers are. So some people have more of a slant because the fingers do have a natural, oh gosh, that hand is so close to the camera. Oh, my hand looks so dead under this camera. I look like a corpse. This is like rigor mortis. But your fingers aren't naturally like this. They naturally are separated and kind of angled in different directions. So remember that for this curve here, so this line. And then that's where you build your, I mean, you can think of them as rectangles or squares, but usually the middle 2 fingers, oh, there's Astrid.
Astrid's here.
Have a tendency to be near each other. And that's what I would look for, making sure you get the spacing right and have the thumb be a good outshoot off that pentagon.
Do you want to come say hi to everybody? I know you don't want to probably come say hi, but I know everyone will probably like to see you for just a second today.
So this is our baby Astrid.
Oh, hi, baby. Oh my goodness, Astrid.
She's a very good cat. She kind of made me a fan of cats. Because I definitely grew up more of a dog person, but now I would say I'm more of a cat person.
Oh, hi, baby. Astrid is definitely not like a good lap cat. She really only snuggles when she wants to, which is almost like only in the morning she really likes to cuddle.
Yeah. Besides that, she's an independent woman.
She does her own little thing.
Mm-hmm.
She comes bothers me when she wants food, which you know it's not time for food yet, so.
She might have to go to the bathroom.
Oh yeah, that's
the
right.
litter
Your
box is
bathroom's
in here. She's like, I really have to let one go, and you keep squeezing me.
I will do it right here if I have to.
If you don't let go, you will regret it.
Well, enjoy your time in here, Astrid.
But she already leave?
No, she's just sitting here.
No.
All right. I do want to catch up. We're at 13 minutes too, just so you know. I was going to do a 15-minute call out, but Astrid, somebody distracted me. Just to make sure I didn't miss any ones here.
Yeah, there she goes. I knew she had to go to the bathroom. Can always tell with this one.
Anthony says, sometimes I'll feel less like I can be a professional artist when I look at other artists who are younger or around the same age as me that have accomplished a lot more.
I mean, yeah. I think it's very easy to look at, I mean, even myself, like looking at some of these younger artists that I think are just killing it. But I mean, in your case, I really do believe in the idea of you gotta stop comparing yourself in a negative light and realize that like everyone's on their own path. And I feel like this is such a wash answer, but it really is true. Instead, look at what you have done and where you are going. So take like 6 months ago. Do you feel like you've made progress since then? And if the answer is genuinely no, it's like, okay, well then let's step it up. I think it's very easy to get discouraged. And kind of going back to the whole screen thing, I think it kind of contributes to not feeling efficient or like good enough as an artist. And I think it might be good for you to even stop looking so much at what other people are doing and try to really connect with what you want to do. Astrid?
Sorry you guys have to hear that.
She doesn't understand she has one of those litter boxes where you have to jump in essentially, and it has like a 1.5 foot wall. So she doesn't cover her litter or her droppings, we'll say, with sand or the litter.
Oh,
she scrapes the outside of the carton thinking it's covering something, but it's not. And she still hasn't learned that it's not doing anything.
All right, I'll let you out. Thanks for stopping for a bit. We'll see you later.
I think some of it is too, if like any endeavor in life, I kind of always saw as like a bunch of mountains, and I think sometimes you don't realize, like, you set your summit, the summit's so high sometimes you never really take the time to look back and see how far you really have come already, even too.
Yeah,
because you're always like, your eyes are just so focused on where you want to be at, and I think it doesn't give you that time to realize, like, oh, maybe I am at that point that I wanted to be at one time, but now I'm already setting the next bar higher.
and also I think it's good to start looking at other artists as inspiration in like a motivating way. Like, oh wow, look what they're doing, that's really cool. Or if you're looking at it like a business perspective, think of like, what can I learn from this, rather than being like, oh, like that makes me feel worse about myself and my work.
Oh, actually, it says talent is just a predisposition, there we go, toward a subject. You want to do that thing more than other things. The rest is just flat out practice and research.
Mm-hmm. I agree. I think there's certain people that have, well, I don't know. I feel like there's certain people that may have more of a tendency to do things in a way that others may not, based on like the way that they were raised. And I mean, there's so many factors that contribute to like in artists and whether or not they're quote unquote good or seen as good. But I do think a lot of like hard work, and kind of like what Josh was saying, a lot of the times you don't see the entire journey of an artist. Instead, you see what's posted, on an Instagram square, and then you come up with a bunch of conclusions as to, oh, well, they're just spit painting. It's really easy for them. I could never do this because look how quickly they're able to produce something, and they're making something every day or whatever it is. But try not to let that get you down. And just know that not every artist is, spitting something out every day. And there are a lot of slower artists out there. I would actually consider myself to be somewhere in the middle. Because I work with pencils, I do think I just naturally will be a little slower than someone that's working with Photoshop. And I'm okay with that. And just remember that you are really your main competition, and you always want to best yourself every day.
I think a lot of it too, though, is like, it comes back to that we sometimes can, I don't want to say we don't see people as people, but sometimes you can see someone as, I don't want to say so much better than you, but you can see someone in a better light than where you're at, that you are kind of blind to seeing that they're still progressing too. Like, even their recent work might be improving, but you don't even notice it because you already see them as like,
oh yeah,
I don't want to say superior, but you see them as already like better than where you're at. But I think everyone's always improving. Because I even think about like actors and stuff. Like Meryl Streep, I think, is an amazing actress. But I'm sure, like, because I think she's so good, I can watch a movie like 30 years ago from her and be like, oh, this is great. But she might watch and be like, oh, that was not my best acting at the time.
Mm-hmm.
But I think we get so like, she's great that we can't even see her own progress in her career, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, no, I agree.
Also, it's at 7 minutes. I was going to do a 10-minute one, but then we were talking too, so I need to be better with these announcements. Rose says, what about perspective drawing practice, especially with people's poses?
To be honest, I don't know if that's something I would cover, just because I don't feel like I am that great at perspective poses. If you haven't noticed, a lot of my work is very, very much like Muka, very Art Nouveau, where it's very posed, very staged, and the camera is like 10 feet away from the subject, and a lot of that. I mean, I guess if it's good practice, but...
What's perspective drawing? I don't know if I know that.
So like the difference is like, see the photo of this hand I just took?
Yeah.
It's like that versus like if my hand was this close to the camera.
Oh.
And have you ever seen that thing on Instagram that's going around of like seeing people at different angles of a camera and how different their face looks?
Oh yeah, like
so those are different perspectives.
Okay.
So it could even be like a ladybug perspective or an eagle perspective looking down. So it's like the camera view creates like a dynamic. But I'm not the most dynamic of artists, I would have to admit. But who knows? I mean, maybe. Why not? I feel like it would be good practice. But you definitely won't see anything that's like sci-fi spaceship from me on any of these streams.
Yeah, I could never see you doing that.
Well, I think
maybe though. Who knows?
No, I do know.
Who knows, Tim?
No, I know. I think it's something where you know what you enjoy drawing, and you know, someone told me this recently too. Maybe it was Miles, where he was talking about you want to create and draw out of a place that gives you joy, gives you life, because then your drawing will reflect that. And if you're drawing something that you just genuinely don't enjoy doing, it'll read that way. And I think that's even why with these tutorials, I don't want to dive into subject matter that I don't even enjoy doing myself. And it's not even sometimes that I'm not comfortable with it. Like I'm not comfortable drawing, like let's say feet per se as much, but I'll still do a stream on that because I draw a lot of characters, and I think that that is important to what I do as an artist. But like a sci-fi spaceship, I will never draw a sci-fi story, and I don't think I would ever enjoy doing hard surface. Or at least on that level, because I mean technically we did crystals all through January and some of that was hard surface. So you know what, answer to that question is a big maybe. But leaning no.
Catalina, I do appreciate when other artists give their thoughts on my artwork. They also help with improving the parts I'm not so great at, just like you do at the end of these sessions.
Yeah, I think criticism has been so different than when I went to school. I think a lot of it now is like the sandwich technique, the compliment sandwich, where you say something good, something bad, something good. But when I went to college, and especially in high school, it was very much like, this is what's wrong, and you need to fix it. And it's funny, I mean, there's so many different teaching methods, and when you watch a movie like Whiplash, you kind of see the extreme of giving zero positive feedback. And then I think a lot of the times in today's day and age, you see the adverse effect of giving too much positive feedback, because then they're not really creating anything of substance. And they're getting all these likes and compliments, so they're feeling really good about what they're doing. But what they can't recognize anymore is that their work really is subpar in terms of technical ability. So I think maybe that compliment sandwich is like a medium between them. And I try to do that with these streams, but I also would always try to be honest, because I think critiques that aren't constructive aren't critiques. You know, there's like a pat on the back, they're a high five, they're a good job, you know. And I don't think that those are very helpful. So I hope that these critique sessions at the end of these streams do feel helpful. You know, I thought this hand was going to be horrible, but I'm like, okay, it doesn't look as bad as I...
No, it's good.
It's okay. I think there's sometimes when I draw something, especially when I have these time limits, like if this was not timed, I probably would have restarted the hand, because I think something about, I feel like this is just a hair too tall here. But it's one of those things where I have to like look at it on my monitor, because that's where the reference is. But anyways.
Rosalie says, I'm so glad you show that erasing and redoing is all part of the process of getting the correct image. It makes me feel a bit more normal. You also just taught me to build the fingers.
Oh, well, that's good. Oh, I know, it drives me nuts sometimes when I see on Instagram when people cater and edit their videos to basically look like they created this perfect drawing from start to finish. I want all of you to know that that is not reality. And I know a lot of these artists that are doing these videos.
It's all an illusion.
And they talk all the time about how hard it is to create these videos where they'll mess up and they have to start over, or they have to, you know, edit that part out of the video. So just know that it's very normal to get into a drawing, even one that you kind of like, and still have to like erase a section or restart a whole area. Very normal.
All right. It's getting closer, almost to a minute, 30 seconds here. Felix says, I also always switch between observational versus construction versus style approach.
Same. It's one of those things where I actually don't dog myself on it though, because I realize I do best drawing when I'm kind of following my intuition. So if that day I'm feeling like I want to lay out some fundamental lines or whatever, I will do so. But if other days I'm like, yeah, I'm just going to kind of go for it. Like today I'm kind of just going for it. I don't know why I'm in that mood this morning, but I am, and I have to just kind of follow it. And I'm very good at listening to my intuition now more so than I was in my 20s, because I realized that my method is never going to be this methodical way of drawing where every single time it's like a machine that can just pump out the same thing over and over. I feel like most drawings are going to be slightly different. The process is always changing and evolving. I'm always learning a new technique that I want to apply to the way I draw. So just keep that in mind. Even with myself, I don't feel concrete on my process, and I feel like it's always evolving, and that's totally okay. Because I was always under the impression that artists create like this one method of creating their work, and they just do that over and over and over. Where in reality, they're kind of Frankensteining what has worked for them in the past, and hopefully it's still, you know, implementing new ideas and new ways of doing things to keep their work improving.
And we are at time.
Okay. Whew. Okay, we'll take about a minute break here. So if you guys want to go to the bathroom, collect yourself, stretch. Yeah, mine's all right. I feel like I'm going to try to work on the next one, get some more tighter areas, or at least maybe the proportions. So we'll see how you guys are feeling with yours.
I like that you got that little opening between the, what is that?
The middle fingers.
Yeah.
I mean, this is definitely considered an anime hand. For those of you who don't know, if you watch anime or watch a lot of animated, they'll kind of even stitch these two fingers together where they won't even draw, like the top part of it will just even be like melted together.
Oh, weird.
I mean, I do it sometimes. Actually, does this one do it at all? No. I don't think I have any of my drawings near me. Yeah, sometimes I will kind of like not fully draw the line in between the two fingers.
Oh.
Because, I mean, even Muka does this a lot where he'll kind of melt certain digits together depending. I mean, not like heavy melt, but you guys know what I mean. Or maybe not.
Is there like a reason for it, or just it's like a style almost?
A style.
Okay.
Sometimes, and I guess that's another thing with doing these studies. Like, you can see that I kind of forewent the shadow underneath the arm here. Because I like kind of the contrast that it gives. And knowing me, I might even do like a very light, like a 2H underneath just to make the hand pop out from the paper more. So you'll kind of learn there's certain things that you do on a drawing that is kind of unique to you. But you know what? I'm going to keep this. I don't want to make it look like I was drawing after the time.
Yeah. Uh-oh.
I'll erase that.
Breaking the rules.
So let me get hand number 2.
Actually, there are some things I want to catch. I want to try to get caught up on, because you guys are...
Oh yeah, let's get like 2 questions.
Yeah, I want to make sure I'm getting everyone's stuff in. I say that, and then I scrolled down, so then I have to find where I was at. All right, perfect. So Jonathan Liddell, in regards to, I think, reference, like what to use for references, says books for sure. I interviewed a woman in the video game industry who sits with 2 art books as she works, Anatomy and Perspective.
Oh, yeah, I could totally see that. I mean, anatomy books are great. And like if you have, I have one of these things. Actually, I don't even know if I can show some. I guess I can cover the...
Yeah.
So I have one of these on my desk, and sometimes I'll use it. Like I was working on... Let me see if I have it. Actually, I think I do have it. It's in here. I was just drawing kind of like a tarot figure. It was like a warm-up, this guy. Because I want to, like, that's why there's like horns, a halo, wings, like a sun thing. He's holding a different kind of priestly banner. So this is kind of like my warm-up into doing more people tarot cards, because I think the next one I'm doing is the High Priestess, which is this one. And I want to get kind of used to getting into that realm of drawing kind of these ethereal people that have, like, you know, this kind of a look to them, you know, where there's a lot of frills, a lot of metal, a lot of halo, a lot of whatnot. And on him, the whole point of bringing this up is I looked at his...
Oh my gosh.
I was using this as a reference for his chest, and I kind of wish I had a posable one. If any of you guys know a good posable kind of dummy, and both male and female I kind of want, I know there's a couple, but I haven't invested in any yet. So if any of you have actually tried one and you're like, yeah, this one I would definitely recommend, I would love to know, because I'm looking for that, especially as I'm doing more of these figure based drawings. Okay, let's get into the next one.
All right. I'm gonna crack this window, I think.
Oh yeah.
It's getting a little toasty in here.
Things are heating up. We're on hand number 2. Josh can barely contain it.
I always get scared I'm gonna do something to this.
I know, that's my giant 5-foot drawing. I'll probably start working on it again in May. I'm just so preoccupied with getting the book out, because obviously all of you know COVID's been a problem for all of us, and things that we want to draw sometimes have to take a back seat to things that we need to draw. So anyways, all right, let's get it going.
Oh, wait, where's the mouse? Hang on, I'm finding. Oh, there it is.
Actually, really quick though, so this one we're doing the palm side of the hand. So remember to really flesh out the meaty parts of the palm, as I was taught, which is basically here, here, and here. And you really want to make sure the webbing is not seen on this side. So you can see on this side, you can see where the webbing kind of goes down. But on the back of the hand, it does kind of give the impression of like stop, start for each of them. Just something to keep in mind. And you really want to be aware of the wrinkles on your fingers between the knuckles and the digits. These usually have 2 lines, and then the top one usually has about one line. Some of mine are like broken lines, but usually these are more 1, these are more 2. Something to keep in mind as we get into this next hand here. Okay, ready.
All right, ready?
Ready.
Starting in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
Okay. Actually, I'm going to move that over a bit. Number 2.
I feel like phones are such a great tool, but a lot of times goes to waste up being on them. Even at my work during lunch breaks, no one even talks to each other. They just scroll aimlessly.
See, that's what I mean.
It's kind of scary sometimes. I've sometimes just sat like in a lobby or something at somewhere and just sat there and kind of just watched around me. And it is like everyone's just on their phones. And I don't know, maybe it's not a bad thing. But sometimes I feel like there is like a disconnect with people, because we don't really look at each other anymore. We're kind of just all in our own world, and that's it. And I think when we're around even strangers, we kind of don't even, I don't know, our time isn't given to them even in a way anymore.
Yeah, we don't want to interact with people anymore.
Yeah. I mean, I'm not saying, because I do it too, so it's like this new way that we interact, and it's good, but also can be bad, I think.
I would say for the most part it's bad. I think we have kind of lost touch with connection with actual people, and I think a lot of the connections we have nowadays are these digital ones, where oftentimes they're not even that real. I think if any of you have seen the new Euphoria episode, the one with Jules, I thought it was a really good representation, not just of like relationship fantasies, but also friendship fantasies, and even how we stay in touch with people. I think we create this fantasy world where we connect more with people behind a screen rather than in person. And then often when we're in person, then it's like this weird disconnect. And I think it's because there's this beauty of you can kind of project how you want to imagine that friend or that other person on the other side of the screen. But in person, you're getting exactly who they are, and you can't like edit that. But I think it's good, because then when you can make connections with people, even though you can't edit them, I think those are the more genuine ones and the ones that we're kind of seeking. But obviously COVID threw a huge wrench in that. So it was like COVID plus, I mean, in the States, there was a lot of political animosity, and then I think the isolation, it was just a lot of factors contributing to, I think a lot of people are having a hard time right now with connections. So I do think, depending on, you know, your situation and if you can actually see people, really strive to make those connections with people. And I know even with me and Josh, like even this Friday, we're going to see my parents for a board game night. And it's something that I never used to do at all. But I'm realizing that my parents are getting older, and I'm kind of seeing they don't really have a lot of friends anymore. And it's not because they're not likable people, but a lot of their friends are dying. I don't know how to put that nicely, but they're not as lively as they used to be. And I think it's because they don't have that human interaction as much anymore. And I'm realizing like that is really what is important in this life. And obviously I think finding someone, so I think Josh would be my main person that you can like talk to and do everything with. But I think also building connections with other people is so important on top of that, because like when COVID's all over, we want to have this big summer party, and I want to just celebrate being alive at the same time as these other people. And I just want to be like, thank you for existing. And I mean, I'm definitely turning into a hippie the older I get, but I really do believe that the connections with other people are really what matter in this life. Like regardless of religion, regardless of beliefs or whatever, I really think more than anything, connections with people are valuable and something that we should seek. Anyways, rant over.
Yeah. Board game night's fun though. I'm excited to do that with your parents. I think just spending quality time with specifically older people in general, I think is just a good, I don't know, it gives you like this appreciation for life more. I don't know. And it's fun. We'll just have dinner together and play board games and
especially
just talk with them.
I mean, a lot of you guys don't know this, but it's sometimes difficult talking with my dad because he's so convinced that he's gonna die like any day now. He's always like reminding me of what it's like to be alive, which I guess is a good thing.
It's a good reminder.
I guess it's a good reminder. But yeah, I mean, if you have parents that you feel like you're not as close with, and I used to think that I wouldn't be close with my parents, specifically my father, ever, because growing up gay, I think you have, you know, a few of these prejudices or stigmas against what it means to have a relationship with your father. But I'm realizing it was just me projecting my own insecurities on him. And I sometimes wonder if that's why some of my friendships have crumbled in the past, or at least the ones like from high school. I won't name names, but am I projecting my own insecurities, or like they won't want to be around me anymore because I'm too like artsy fartsy or whatever it is. So yeah. Anyways, I gotta stop talking, or else I'm just gonna keep rambling.
I mean, I don't know. It's weird because actually I've never really talked about this. But yeah, my parents don't approve of me being gay, and it's been a weird thing because they're very open still, like to hang out, and they like to have Tim over. They refer to Tim as my friend, but even that, I think I got to this point in life too. It's like they're always going to be my parents, and I can either live my life despising them for not agreeing with who I am, or I can be as open as I possibly can with them and still love them, because I know in a way they love me too. It's, you know, they're very religious, but I love them still, and I know they love me too. And a lot of people will be like, oh, because they don't agree with you being gay, I don't think they fully love you. And yeah, I kind of agree with that to an extent, but I think they still do love me in a way, even though there is this weird layer of,
I would say they love you, they don't respect your decision.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it is weird because like Tim and I, it's exciting where, you know, there's all these changes in our life, and you know, there's going to be a wedding one day and stuff like that too, and they've been pretty frank that they wouldn't show up to something like that even. And I think it's weird because I think love is something that's really important to me in life. So it's weird to have that dynamic. But I'm at the same point, I'm like, I still want to have a connection with them, and I don't want to live my life, and I don't want them to leave with me having this regret then of like, I didn't spend enough time with them, or at least give them a shot. So It's weird though, for sure.
Oh, I didn't realize how long this looks.
Really?
I think some of you are gonna cringe.
Damn, no.
No, but I think
I like that aggressive erasing.
right.
Get out of there.
I want them to know. But I even think, even going off of what we were saying earlier and kind of what you're saying with your parents, I think it's okay that even though Josh's parents disagree with his decision, because I remember he had this conversation with me, especially last summer when like cancel culture was definitely adamant and very strong. And I think that the thought crossed your head of like, do I just cut them out? Like, are they negative influences in my life? But I think you have to realize that just because you guys disagree on something doesn't mean you just cut someone out. And I think it's okay that even though you guys don't see eye to eye on that subject, they're still your parents and they still treat you well outside of disagreeing with that.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's always that hope that maybe they come around, but even if they don't, I think I would rather live a life where I'm giving them love and showing them respect. And then when they die, I feel like I wouldn't have any regrets feeling like I was stubborn or I was, you know, holding something against them.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's probably not a popular opinion amongst gay people, but I generally can say like there's more to me than being gay. And I know it's not my entire who I am. Like who I love is a huge part of who I am, but I think there's a lot more to me too. And if they can love those parts of me still, I'm okay with that. I take that over like nothing, I guess.
Yeah,
So,
you're like 98% gay.
Exactly. But I think because we did cut each other out for a while and it was really hard for me. And I know it was hard for them too. But at the end of the day, it was still hard for me because it's like they're family. And I'm thankful I even have family because I know there's people that don't have that even. So I'm like, you know what? I'll take what I can get because at least I have it. So I'm thankful for that.
It's like being grateful for the things that you have, even if they're not perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
Mm-hmm. So anyways, drawing hands.
All right.
Life advice with Tim and Josh.
Catch up on some of these comments because you guys have so many good things to say too. Sophie says, are you allowed to get criticized if you didn't draw hands today? What are we criticizing?
Life events. I would say we're going to keep it more specific to the hands today, just because I keep seeing more and more people join in on these streams, and I don't want critique sessions eventually to get to be like, you know, an hour just critiquing. But just know, like, you can totally just watch these in the background and still post in the follow along channel.
And there is on the Discord too. There's a channel called Looking for Critiques. Mm-hmm. And if you want to have the community kind of look at it and give some advice too, that's a great way.
Actually, good call.
Yeah.
That's probably the best way.
As you're going or something, working on something, everyone's pretty good at helping each other out in there.
Okay, I gotta kick it up.
Right, we're at 20 minutes too, just so you know.
Thank you.
So it's only been 10 minutes.
But I had to erase that big section.
Whose fault was that?
Mine. My own. I do not blame anyone else.
No, that's good. I think that's good for everyone to see too.
Because you can even see the erase marks. See how far out they were?
Oh my god, yeah.
Well, and it's funny is, I think because I draw at an angle on these live streams, to me it looks good from this angle, but when I'm looking straight down, it changes it really long to me.
Anthony, I feel like most artists are desensitized to the naked human body since we need to study it so much.
I totally
pulling up that
agree.
model, and I'm like, that's probably the tamest thing a lot of these people have seen.
Well, I'm almost worried about getting flagged or something, because I feel like I've been flagged for less in the past. So like, yeah. Because even the light drawing sessions, I'm pretty sure one of them I had to take down because I got flagged for nudity.
There's just like one call if I get today I may have to take, but otherwise I'm good.
Oh, is it a tax one?
Yeah.
We're doing our taxes, the lovely time of the year. Actually, no, I'm looking forward to this year because I actually get a return for the first time in like 3 years. I guess the benefits of paying yourself through an LLC.
Felix says posing 3D models is way easier and you can really control the camera and lighting.
Actually, Felix, could you reference me? Because you know what? I was just thinking about that the other day. I have one on my phone, but the posing is really awkward because you're trying to do it with the phone. I haven't really found a great 3D one yet, but I haven't looked that hard either. So if you could just post that in the Discord, I would love to check it out, honestly.
I think I'm slowly catching up now, because that was like a little bit ago. We were talking about the habits, because everyone has like good input on that too, or the reference. Sorry. Alina says, having online friends through COVID was vital to me as I live alone. But now for exactly that access to human interaction, I moved back to Finland where I have people around me.
Like, I'm so glad we did have the internet for this type of pandemic situation.
Oh my gosh, right? It'd be really hard without it.
But I don't know, maybe this is a hot topic, but I feel like it also, though, made people a little stir crazy, and they feel like we were yelling and arguing with people online, like people we didn't know, obviously, because there was no repercussion. I feel like people were having discussions that were really serious, and I believe discussions that should be kind of held, maybe not in private, but definitely if you want to have a good discussion with someone on this topic, I feel like doing it in person is so much more beneficial for everyone involved than, you know, blasting someone on Twitter. But I do feel like the connection was great. Like the positive ones were great, and I think it gave a lot of people peace of mind, or like people they could turn to if they needed to.
There's like really great ones and then just really bad ones.
Yeah, you like saw both ends of the spectrum, the really good and the really bad.
Yeah, it was weird because I even had friends too that in person I feel like they're a whole different person than what I was seeing online in terms of the way they were just attacking people or fighting. It was definitely just a weird year.
It was a really weird
Especially
year.
like the whole mask thing. I just had friends that were like screaming at people online for not wearing them and stuff, which I understand, but I also think like personal attacks and making fun of people is, if anything, going to make people more inclined to do the exact opposite of what you want them to do. Because if you're insulting them and stuff, it's just going to fire them to be like, well, I'm going to keep doing this because you're going to insult me or whatever.
It's so tough.
Yeah, it just doesn't work out, I feel like. It's a no-win situation. It's just two people saying words to each other without really anyone listening.
I mean, I guess something that me and Josh kind of did, and if it helps any of you out, if you're feeling stressed like from news or politics or like seeing, if you can just tell it gives you stress, or if it adds unnecessary stress to your life, just legit, or like people that you follow that are constantly posting about it, just mute them. Just mute them, unfollow them, do what you must, because I think if we really do want to see a change, or at least you want to see a change in your personal mindset, I think recognizing what stresses you out and being able to recognize that maybe I should take this out of my daily regimen of seeing it, because there is a lot to say about following a lot of people that are posting a lot of negative stuff and how that attaches onto you and attaches onto your day. It's like you carry it with you. And I try to find people that are trying to do positive influences in the world and trying to do good change. And that always makes me feel uplifted. And I want to also be on that same level of like trying to inspire people or trying to carry a message of kindness, you know, all that good stuff. And I'm staying true to it.
Mm-hmm. Actually, that's why I really like being with you, because I think that's something that's important to me too. So I think finding someone that has that same like drive in life to be that person, I think helps a lot.
Yeah.
Jonathan, amen to these rambles. Leon says, my daughter is gay and my deeply conservative family doesn't accept her. I love her and chose her over my family early on, but during this isolation, I definitely wish I could be with my family.
Oh, that is a pickle.
Yeah. That's hard because you're standing up for someone that you love, but also kind of giving up something else too. And that's like a huge sacrifice.
I want to give you a lot of credit. I just feel like that is a very difficult decision you had to make. And I'm sure your daughter may even express this to you. Maybe even if she doesn't verbally. I'm sure she appreciates that so much for taking her side with these things. And I give you a lot of credit because I think that's really courageous of you to do that.
And like, yeah, I hope one day there could be some kind of bridge that happens, that they at least somehow accept, you know, accept her. It's
Well,
hard. I mean,
even if they don't accept the gay aspect of it, at least being able to like be around her and just engage with her in conversation. I think it goes back to, you don't have to agree with everything with your family. And I think if you do disagree with things, I think it is okay to bring it up in a conversation and, have it be a conversation that feels not only warranted, but it feels helpful on both sides. And maybe you can help them see something that maybe they haven't considered before. But it kind of goes back to as long as you do it in a way that's not demeaning them or attacking them, because as much as we want to get our point across, I think if we really want them to see a change, you do have to lead by example and try to take in consideration that whatever viewpoint they're trying to argue at, and try to get in their headspace and be like, okay, why are they thinking this way? Like, what is making them disagree with me so much? And I think if you can try to understand them, it'll be easier than to try to get them to understand where you're coming from.
Anthony says, growing up gay, my father was actually the more supportive one since my mother was strictly raised in the Greek Orthodox Church, but she still loves me.
Oh.
Yeah, it's hard. It's a weird, like, trying to kind of come to terms with it, and the fact that, okay, they don't agree with this part of me, but I can still look at the bigger picture of there's still a lot of good there, and at least there's some form of connection. It's never going to be probably like where you want it to be ever, but at least there's some form of connection, which is better than nothing. And it comes back to your saying too, I think our time on earth is about connecting with people a lot. So it's like I spent 20 years of my life living with my parents and being around them all the time. So it's like I don't want to just give up that connection I have in all those years I spent building it, just at the drop of a dime, because there's one thing they don't see eye to eye on with me. And you know what? It's like, I personally don't think they ever will. And Tim and I had this talk too. My parents, I grew up in the church with them. I actually played hymns every Sunday on the piano. And you know what? I look back as different, and I don't always agree with some of the stuff we did. I still look back on it with like good memories. So there's still a lot of good parts of it, even though there was a lot of bad involved with it too. But I don't know. It was character building, I guess, too.
Chalk it up to character building.
Right, it's character building. Yeah, I don't know. It's definitely strange, but like you said, she still loves me, and I think that's good that you can see that too. You have to almost look through their lens of life and how they see you in a way, and just know that they do love you.
Oh, we 10
got 10
minutes, by the way.
minutes.
Oh,
yeah.
Look at that. We're both on top of it that time.
I felt your brain going there. I was like, Tim, don't say it. Don't say it. I got it. Alina says, Josh, I'm not in the exact same situation, but one of my best friends recently turned to the Baptist faith. Ooh, that's kind of what I grew up in. And as I am bi, it's a strain for us, but we found being friends to be more important.
Oh, good.
Yeah, I think that's beautiful, because it's like, there's this thing that you're never going to see eye to eye on, but I think it's good that you guys both accepted friendship, and that connection is going to be important to both of you in life. And you're always going to be able to offer her, and vice versa, a different perspective of the world. And it gives you something else to think about, whether you agree with it or not. And I think that's helpful, as long as it's not like directly harming either of you. Fidgety Fox says, I have an offer to illustrate a book. I sent some studies to him, and now he's asking to meet before I start every drawing. Any advice on asking the trust my process so he isn't micromanaging? Any advice on...
What are you saying, Josh?
Oh, no, I'm sorry. I'm trying to figure out what you're... Any advice on asking... trust the process so he's micromanaging?
Asking him to trust my process so he isn't micromanaging.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
It's tough because with especially authors, they want to have their hand in every aspect of it, because to them the story is so important, they're so involved with it, that they're going to want to control the end result of the book. I've had people tell me both sides of the story with freelance, where they're like too involved versus not involved enough. And just know that every job like that's going to be different. But if he does try to over micromanage, then if you can kind of get the sense that that's where he's going with it, you need to be upfront with him at the start then of, hey, so here is our agreement for a cover design. You can have 3 edits or redos, and I'll give you updates at like 30%, 60%, 90%. And you have to be very direct and almost have like a contract where he has to sign off on it. And that way, when you're like 95% done with it and he's trying to make 5 changes, you can be like, well, no, remember our contract and this is what we agreed upon. And the only way that I would agree to making more edits is if you pay me more. I think it's okay to have more of a firm stance with freelance stuff, because more than anything in the art world, I see artists taken advantage of with freelance. There is nothing more that I see artists taken advantage of with, or commissions, but I guess they kind of fall under the same realm. So be firm, be direct, and be very practical with your scheduling.
It's a business partnership, so yeah, I think it's fair to like explain how you would like doing business in a way too, like doing your art.
But don't sign up for something that you can't get out of.
Jonathan says, Tim and Josh, this is so awesome to hear. There is such strength in not falling into resentment or arrogance. Really looking forward to meeting you guys to chat about this.
I know.
I'm so excited to meet you. Yeah.
We want to go to Scotland. It might not be this year though, because we're like under the financial pressure still. And until COVID is basically not as big of an issue and we're able to do cons again, I think for money wise, we just got to be careful with spending.
I feel like going overseas is kind of scary right now too.
Well, and that too.
Yeah, I might get trapped. But yeah, no, it's gonna be so good.
I guess Scotland wouldn't be the worst place to get trapped in.
I mean, I would totally be okay with that.
Right, but we won't put ourselves in that position quite yet.
Yeah, I definitely think in terms of resentment and arrogance, I think those are like emotions and things not to hold on to, because that's just gonna exhaust you. And I think it creates, you start dehumanizing people in your head. I don't feel good when I do that. Yeah.
Well, and I mean, I've really resonated with a quote recently. Oh my god, my pencil sharpener is like stuck. Oh my gosh. I'm gonna have to use my automatic one. Okay, it's gonna get loud for a second. It just never gets it to a fine point. Okay, good enough. And I really do believe life's like an echo. And whatever you give out will eventually come back to you. And it doesn't mean that you do good deeds or you try to do good things in the hopes that, yeah, you're going to get good things in return. But I have seen it be so true that you reap what you sow, especially later in your life, where I feel, and I don't know if you feel similar to this, but I feel like the connections I made in my 20s or even with my family, I've always given it such a priority that now that I'm getting older, I'm like feeling the benefits of it. And I think even the way that we are interacting with people that come to the house, you kind of create this atmosphere of like, I want to hang out with people. I want to continue seeing the best in people, because then they see the best in you. And then when you hang out with them, I feel like it is just this wonderful, positive experience. And sometimes it's hard, especially when, life is knocking you down and things like COVID happen. And yeah, I had a very stressful March of last year. But I can't let that get me down and forever, because at some point you got to pick yourself up by the, what's that whole, you got to lace up, you got to get to work. And I think when it comes to other people, I think it's very easy to be judgmental or to demean them as wrong, and then you write them off completely. But what I've learned are, even if I disagree with something on something, whatever it is, I can still hold conversations with them. And I love people that I can have hot topic discussions with, because those are the people that you can feel comfortable discussing anything. And a lot of the times, like even my new friend Alex Dos Diaz, who I really appreciate, I feel like I'm able to learn a lot from him and his background and his culture, that things that I never knew about before. And I'm glad that we're able to have these discussions where he can feel comfortable talking freely about this. Or even if I'm like, I feel very ignorant on this issue, like I would love to know your thoughts on this. And I think that makes you a better person because you didn't just write someone off for being different. Instead, you wanted to learn from that. Anyways, I'm ranting again.
You're not ranting.
I'm ranting again. Yeah, focus on the sand. I only have like 3 minutes left.
Felix says, I just use Blender. Just posing models is not that difficult.
Oh yeah, I know Blender. But is there like I know some people make like pre-made models, unless if Blender has one already built in nowadays.
I know there's an app I remember showing you. What was that one I showed you where you could do that? You could like move, and you could like do it in different layers. So you could like have a skeleton, or you could change it like muscle layer, or you could do like an actual person. I can't remember what the app was,
what it was
though.
called. I might have it on my phone.
I remember like I downloaded it just to show you, and then I got rid of it, so I don't even know.
I mean, I have
2 minutes.
Skelly.
2 minutes.
Or Skelly.
Skelly.
The Proco one. And that one really helps when I need to draw skeletons. I'll pull that up. But I want more for like, if I need a lady laying in a bed of flowers, like I need that pose. Because I could take a reference picture of myself, but it's really difficult to take my picture of myself laying down in like a certain pose. And I would pose Josh, but I feel like Josh is not the most comfortable with posing.
I mean, if you just put me in the position, I'm usually pretty good. I can like just hold it then. But I overthink it so much when Tim wants me to do something, because I'm like, okay, I'm trying to be natural, and then it just comes out like really bad.
I would say really bad, but you can definitely tell you feel a little stiff in the photo.
Yeah, I just get a little bit like, well, I think because I want it to be perfect then for you, and it just never comes out right.
Well, and some things are like shoulders up, fingers are like...
Oh, I don't do that. Oh my god. 1 minute, by the way. And just for that, you're not getting the last minute.
Get out of here.
Nope. Reset. No, you're good. Let's see if we can get one more in. Anthony says, I have a more personal interest with people wearing masks. My mother works with COVID patients, so whenever really not smart people don't wear one, they're another risk to my mother's life. Yes, I understand. Yeah, I think that's a big thing. I think the thing is, it's like, I can have friends online too that it's like very personal attacks at people. It's not, I don't know, trying to even be smart about it. And I get it. It's like people can get I get it because people's lives are at risk. I don't know what I'm trying to say. I get
where you're going with
people's lives are at risk. I think the like flaming other people doesn't help fix it. But I don't even know what fixes it. I don't know.
I just think it comes down to being respectful towards other people.
There we go. Okay.
Okay.
Beep, beep, beep.
So that's my second hand. I try to save it from having to erase it halfway through. Let me just do a little thing there, and then I'm done.
Actually, I like that you can kind of see where you had it before when you erased.
You can still see.
Yeah, I can see now why you did that.
Do you see like how they were like too long?
Yeah, no, that worked out
I
better.
I almost should have adjusted this section here a bit, but that's okay. I mean, with these kind of studies, it's good to look at your work and kind of constructively be like, okay, I can kind of see where things are a little off, where they think could be improved on. And even with myself, even though I've drawn hundreds upon hundreds upon hundreds of hands before, it's always a good reminder of like, oh yeah, this could still be improved on, or this looks a little off here. Okay, so we're gonna get ready for our third hand. So if you want to take a minute to either collect your stuff or go to the bathroom, get a cup of water.
Actually, I'll be right back.
Okay. Josh being one of them. I'm gonna get myself ready here.
Astrid's just sleeping outside the door.
Oh really?
Yeah.
Oh, what a cutie. So the third hand reference that I decided to pull up was a more difficult one because it's a side angle, where with the first two, it was the front of the hand and the back of the hand. Or I guess, would this be considered the front of the hand and the back of the hand? Anyways, I think I want to do one from a side view because these can be a little more tricky because you can't just rely on finding the pentagon and then kind of building the hand off of that. You really have to think almost abstractly and put it into like a 3D program in your head and turn the hand sideways. So that is what we will be looking at today for our last one. All right, let's see here. Let's see where Josh ended off here. I see, does anyone have the link to the Discord? So the link is below in the description. You should find it. and you can find the references for these hands, and that's where we'll be posting them for the critique after this. So if you want the critique, be sure to post in the stream follow along channel. There we go. Sayo says, I know you're busy, but do you plan to take commissions this year? I do not. I have so much personal work, and I already signed up to do an animated short, which I'm not allowed to talk about too much, but I have to start probably next week on it. And it's not in my style, so it's not like a pencil animation. Maybe one day, but I'm doing work for my old company, CG Cookie, because I owe them a lot, and yeah, that's why I'm not taking on commissions this year. Elena says, what, you're going to Scotland for a con after I move back away from there? Unfair, though I may move back in August. Yeah, probably next year we're going to be going to Scotland. So if any of you are near the area and want to have a drawing hangout, I'm sure Jonathan would be more than welcome to, or I would hope you'd be more than game to have a few other people like meet at, I don't know, some kind of a scenic location to draw mountains or wildlife, whatever it is. Maybe we'll make like a scheduled plan out of it, but like I said, that won't happen until next year. Okay, are you ready for hand number 3?
Hand number 3, the final one.
Okay, everyone, this is it. So this is the tricky one. So be sure to really, focus on how to draw the hand at this angle, because it's a squished in hand. The fingers are all at different angles, and this one's gonna be a little tricky. So hopefully you guys can nail it. Just remember, keep breaking it down into shapes and their space relation to one another, and that should help you figure it out in the end. Okay, ready?
Ready. All right. 3, 2, and 1. Begin.
So for something like this, I'm still gonna draw the overall hand bean shape in the palm.
Move the... Oh, no, right, you're ready. Sorry, it was on the delay.
And then kind of build out the fingers from this. Now I'm gonna really try to get my proportions looking good here, because I feel like the first two, they're fine, but I feel like they could have been adjusted just a little bit. So this one I'm gonna really try on getting the proportions more accurate here.
All right. I just want to make sure. Did you read a couple things, right?
Yeah.
Okay. Where did you get it out? Let me see. All right. The con. I think actually you read Lena's, right, about going back to Scotland.
Yes.
All right. Perfect. Sugarbeat says, who are some of your favorite Insta artists at the moment?
Oh boy. I know there's one.
I can link as you go if you want me to.
Oh my gosh, hold on. I can't go on my phone though because it's recording. I don't think I know their name off the top of my head. I could post it in the chat after the stream's over. Gosh, who am I most excited for? I want to say their name something like Anq or Anqua, but honestly, this isn't even worth it because I could be way off. I'll have to take them after. But obviously, I'm always excited to see anything from Alan Williams, Miles Johnston, Justin Gerard. Like I feel like everyone in that camp, I genuinely get excited seeing whatever they're working on.
Oh, actually, Eric says hello.
Hello, hello.
Good to see you. Jonathan says 100% people got on over for a great wee Scottish tour. Yes, that would be so fun actually, having like.
When you were gone, I was talking about possibly like scheduling a day where if anyone in this near the Scotland area wants to like come on like a nature hike or something, and we find a spot to like draw wildlife.
Yeah,
I think that'd be really nice.
I'll take a nap while we're there.
You could bring your book.
Fem, I wanted to take a more difficult one as the last reference. Are you ready? Fem, no.
Why is this thumb giving me so much trouble? Anyways, no, you can keep going. I'm just muttering to myself.
Oh no, you're good. I think we're pretty much caught up now.
Everyone's deep into their hand drawing here.
Everyone's drawn away.
Something else I've noticed with fingers, particularly with artists, is oftentimes they look like triangle fingers. So remember that the tip of your finger often is almost the same width as, I mean, it's a little smaller, but it's not as pointy as a lot of artists tend to make them.
Is it all Anki? This one?
Yes.
Okay, cool. Okay, actually, CEO.
Wow, CEO, you got that on the head there. They're really exciting to me. But they're just like one out of like, God, there's like 4, I want to say right now, that I'm like actively eager to see what they're creating. But Enki, I feel like or whatever their name is, I can never pronounce it right. I feel like each of their posts, I just feel like are always so full of life and pose and like fun color. Yeah, I just like it a lot.
I'm gonna follow that one too.
Well, and obviously they're also in the realm of like drawing angelic or cathedral, mural stuff, which I'm really into.
Oh yeah, no, I like the colors a lot. It's like a warm. I don't want to distract you.
I know, but there's one specific image that's so popular, and it's like this person getting shot in the neck. Oh God, even like that's so good. Oh yeah, and they do a lot of Howl Moving Castle stuff.
Oh.
That one's really famous with the spears. That one.
Oh gosh.
Right? That was the image I found them on. I mean, obviously it's pretty graphic, but I think it was just so powerful. I'm like, oh my gosh, like I felt that going through him. You know what? Maybe I'm going to take off my glasses here. Let me get up close and personal with this hand.
Hello, Aaron. Aaron asks, what is your favorite thing to draw?
Honestly, I do really like hands. I love drawing eyes. I've always had a fascination with eyes. And, as I get older, I really like drawing spaghetti hair, as I call it. I really like drawing texture patterns. What else do I really like? I mean, contrast. It doesn't even have to be like subject specific, I guess. I really love drawing contrast in anything. But honestly, I would say hands are pretty up there.
Sugar Beats asked, do you ever draw vent art?
Vent art?
I don't know what that is.
Let me see how they spelled it.
V-E-N-T.
Oh, like I'm venting. Yeah. Oh.
Wait, is that what that is?
I mean, I assume so.
Art that someone makes to let out a feeling.
Yeah.
Usually a negative feeling like anger or sadness. Yeah.
It was funny, even last October, I never actually got around to drawing it, but I really love the new Woodkid album. And there's a lot of talking about like duality, and I feel like the context he meant it to be was actually different than the way I picked it up and interpreted it. But it was like making peace with the dark versions of yourself, or like the things that aren't so great about yourself. And I wanted to draw something like that. So to me, when I did it on the iPad, but I just never did a pencil drawing of it. But to me, that was event drawing. It was very much like I got really inspired listening to the song, and then immediately I felt like I had to draw it. So yeah.
That was actually a fun discussion, though, of talking about how we can sometimes be blind to our bad parts, but I think there's so much freedom in like recognizing them.
Well, I think it's okay admitting that like we're not this fully realized positive being. and we have tendencies that do lean darker. And I think for me, I've always had like a stubbornness. There's always been a little bit of a bitterness or even jealousy, honestly. And I think that's something that I am now very aware of when that type of a feeling bubbles to the surface. And I'm very good at, I would say, letting it go, like relinquishing it. But sometimes I use it to my advantage. So like if I can tell I'm getting really jealous of an artist that, let's say, to be real honest here, like if I didn't think their work was that great, but I keep seeing the numbers they get on either likes or like sales or something, I'd get really jealous, really bitter. But since I can recognize that now, I can then turn that feeling into, well, what can you learn from this? What are they doing that you are not? And I try to redirect that negative energy or that negative emotion that is honestly hard to just diffuse completely, because I think we're humans, we're going to have those type of emotions from time to time, and instead see it as a positive, and how am I able to work with that? So, and I think that's why the album really spoke to me, because it's a lot of working with the, you know, the duality of your good and bad. And yeah, anyways, that was a long answer for that question.
Jen says it is interesting, but I kind of feel like your sketchbooks were partly event art, although that might have been your writings rather than the art. I'm unsure.
Yeah, I would say those. I would say my first book, I was pretty much just numb to everything. I felt very sad. I was very much in my Lana Del Rey melancholy phase. And then book 2, it was very much like this freedom. It was very much like letting go of a lot of the pain I felt like I was carrying with me. And I was doing it willingly. And I don't know if any of you are kind of in that same position, but just know that you are more worth what you give yourself credit for. And I think I was basing my worth off of someone's validation of myself. And I think being able to relinquish that, and I vented a lot of that in my writing in my book, was probably the healthiest thing I've ever done for myself in my entire life. Because then from that point forward, I kind of learned how to respect and love myself first, and kind of learn and grow as a person, rather than always being under the thumb of someone's approval. But yeah, actually a lot of what I write about, even in my 4th book, it's a lot of venting, especially with, you know, this whole year has been, or 2020 was such a weird year financially, and not even financially, but like it threw such a curveball, because, you know, Josh left his full-time job to work with me, and literally 2 months before COVID hit, and then I signed a giant house project that I had to pay for the next summer, but that was also 3 months before COVID hit. So there were a lot of things that stressed me the hell out, and I think I was able to vent a lot of it through my drawing or through writing, and obviously talking it out with like people like Josh and my close friends. So yeah, I think it's good to have an outlet, I guess is what I'm trying to say. And I think it's very easy for me to recognize it in hindsight, especially with my first 2 sketchbooks and the writings I had in there. Yeah, it was a very good way of expressing my feelings at that time. Anyways, I'm done.
I don't know if I've been put on that one. Actually, if anything, I'm trying to think about like how I vent out, but I don't really know. I just cry. I just cry a little bit, and then I'm all good.
You know what? It is good to cry. I love the final episode of Midnight Gospel where the mom's talking about, or where the son's like, well, what happens like after you die? Like, I'm feeling really sad. Like, what do I do? And then she's like, you just cry.
Oh God, damn, not right now. Not right now. The episode.
It's so, for those of you who haven't seen Midnight Gospel, honestly, I don't recommend it besides the last episode. If you just want the experience of Midnight Gospel without some of the weirdness that are in the earlier episodes, just watch the last one.
Oh my God.
I promise you, it's easily the best one, and it has a good punch emotionally that I think everyone should hear.
I think every time we watch it, we're all sob crying.
The first time I definitely was tearing up quite a bit.
Yeah. Oh my God. It's really good though. Again, it's like the whole perspective. It will change your perspective of life in a good way.
Well,
which I like.
I wouldn't say it will. I don't like to talk in definitives.
Oh, okay.
It may.
It may change your perspective. No, I think it will. I'm going to be definitive actually on that. I think it will change your perspective.
I think if anything, you'll feel the connection that, because it's basically a conversation between a son and a mom, and like random things are happening, but the mom's dying of cancer. And this is like a real podcast, but it's like illustrated through a cartoon. But the way that the mom talks about life and knowing that she's going to die and passing on soon, and how cancer has deteriorated her in some ways, but in a lot of ways she's become so connected to her soul. It's very beautiful. I don't want to give too much away, but I agree with Josh. I think it's one of those where it's hard to watch it and not feel something.
I think it just has a positive impact.
Agree.
Yeah.
Totally agree. So anyways, we're not getting paid by them, I swear.
Midnight Gospel, now showing on Netflix.
Yeah, right? Like, give me that $5 check in the mail. I promoted you.
Anthony says a stream I think a lot of people would enjoy is one about setting up a booth and the whole process.
I would love
that would be
to
actually
do that.
A lot of fun.
If you know what, we would set up the camera in the back room. We'll take you through the entire process. It might be like a 2-hour stream, but yeah. I don't think we'll do it anytime soon because we don't have any cons. And we'll probably change up the booth a little bit before our first one.
Yeah. It really isn't that bad. Once you have all the things you need for it, it really isn't too bad. So I think it's probably would help too, just to see like how it happens, what to do first. Tim has like a good, because when I came into working with him, you kind of already had like a good routine with it. And I feel like we've kind of been slowly improving on it even too.
I wouldn't say, because by the time you joined me with doing cons, I feel like I had so much trial and error at that point that I found something that I feel like stuck. Mm-hmm. But the other thing with doing con booths, and I think you're very aware of this too, is you have to always be evolving and adapting to either what's better, new lights, or you kind of look around a con and you're like, okay, what are they doing that I'm not? Like, why is their booth so great and my booth feels like it's lacking now? So don't feel like if you find a good booth setup that is your booth setup for life. It is going to constantly be evolving and changing, and you should go into cons knowing that your booth's never going to feel permanent or perfect.
There's definitely a lot of improvising too, because I remember Tim's really good at it, because one of the we had this whole light set up one time, and one of the light clips, or like the clamps to keep the light on the thing, was broke, so Tim came up with a way to like tie it on. There's always like improvising that goes on too, that you kind of have to be ready in the moment. But for the most part, I feel like it is pretty straightforward. It's just a lot of time management with it, because some cons only give you like a very short setup time,
like 2-3 hours that day.
We always like to be, by the time the con starts, we don't want to be the people still setting up. We always want to be like ready to go. So there's a little bit of stress sometimes in terms of that, but usually too it's nice, because especially if you're doing it solo, I think people nearby sometimes will even come help. If someone else finished nearby, sometimes people will come help you out too.
Yeah, or if you have friends.
Yeah. Oh yeah, bringing a friend I think for setup actually would be very helpful.
I will say most big cons though will allow you the day before to set up. So it's only like the small medium ones that there is a chance that you might not be able to set up on Thursday. So yeah, Friday morning you are going. And you are going quickly.
Jonathan says booth it up.
I think we'll do that once cons kind of come back, because I feel like doing a stream on how to set up a con booth might not be the most helpful right now.
I mean, I guess now's a good time to do it, because we can kind of start getting ready for cons coming back ourselves. Maybe we can come up with some new ideas while we're doing it.
Like, I guess whenever we know for sure when our first con is, maybe we'll do a stream before that, or like right after. Because I can even then take footage at the show and like do a time lapse and show the setup process at an actual show. And Josh is very right. Adapting is huge. I mean, I feel like this is a lot of talk about it, but what if your position is facing a wall? Or what if you've been given a corner booth? What if the booth next to you has a giant wall and you have to like work with it? There's a lot of adjustments on the fly that you kind of have to just adapt to, unfortunately.
Yeah, I'm still trying to get better at that. I think you're way more used to it. And I only got like a few cons experience of it, and then COVID happened. So
yeah. Well, I think I'm very comfortable because of how many times I felt like I was not screwed over necessarily in the past, but definitely had to like adjust, and I wasn't very good at adjusting back then. So now I always carry, I mean, you've seen it, I always carry a bunch of extra tape, a bunch of extra, like scissors.
Oh, yeah.
Things that you could put on a booth, way more fabric if necessary, more poles than I actually need. You never know.
Some scary booth neighbors too. I remember in DaishoCon, remember that it was like that toy thing that was next to us?
Oh, that's right.
And their entire, because they had one of those big like metal
fell
stands,
on our booth.
and it started tipping back into our booth.
It was like leaning on our booth.
It hit to a point where we were like literally having to hold it so that it didn't fall completely over, like on top of us, basically. I remember that was spooky because we had to adjust our stuff then.
You know what I would say? My first piece of advice: don't obstruct someone else's booth. Don't have your stuff have a chance of falling on their booth.
Yeah.
Like anything that would impede someone else, try not to do it because you're just gonna make other people upset.
Yeah, I was pretty annoyed with that, and they were kind of disrespectful. Yeah, they were definitely disrespectful of our space, and the amount of times they would hit our poles, and then everything shakes. So we have all the prints on these strings. So every time they hit it, all the prints kind of like shift a little bit. So then we're constantly having to readjust them because they kept like knocking into it.
So be respectful, I guess is what we're saying. Well, and even on our part, I think at some point we're like, you know what? We're going to have to adjust and adapt to this situation. I believe we did move the poles like 3 inches.
Yeah, we did. We were like, we're not doing this anymore.
So like if you get to a point where you're realizing it is affecting you, but like they're not changing, because they said they couldn't change their width of their booth because the way that their structure was set up. So we were like, then you know what? We're going to adjust ours because we have to adjust to the situation. And rather than just blame them and be like, F them, like they don't respect our space. It's like, okay, well, you can either complain about them or make a change so that you can still make sales at the show. And that's what we did.
Yeah.
So always be aware of that, because you're going to be having to adapt. And maybe not even just on the first day. You might have to adapt throughout the weekend, unfortunately.
All right, 10 minutes. Alina says, I'm trying to kind of do that same venting my dark parts and working with them, but instead of making drawings out of it, I write bad free-form poetry to vent.
Bad free-form poetry, I like that.
I mean, sometimes I think having something very personal to you that you can vent with too helps.
Well, I'd say my best friend Kat, she would always recommend writing. She says writing, because she reads a lot of books about this too, but apparently it's like a healthy way of expressing how you're feeling without outputting it in a negative fashion, because it's only you're the only one that's going to be reading this book, and you're able to say exactly what you want to say unfiltered, and you can kind of get it out of your head, so that way you're not thinking about it anymore and you feel like you got it out. I don't know. Yeah, I feel like you've never really been an outlet person, really. You kind of just hold it in.
Kind of.
And then you'll talk to me eventually, usually.
Usually, like, once a month I'll just cry, and then I'll be like, nope, I'm good now. I was holding it in. I'm good now. Usually, I'm like, why don't I just release or, like, talk about things earlier than I do? I hold on to things too much.
I feel like you've gotten better with that, though.
Yeah, I know I have been better. I think strangely, I know you like that, too. You say, like, Tim likes to process things on his own a lot, too, where he likes to just have space for a moment, process it.
And then I'm good to talk.
And I feel like I'm kind of like that sometimes too. My processing period takes a really long time sometimes.
You just need a new processor.
Yeah. Gotta upgrade.
Yeah. We'll go to Best Buy one of these days and hit you up.
I'm running on an older system. It's fine.
That's okay. I have a very low RAM storage, so I feel like I can only do a few things at a time.
Anthony says, a line from a cartoon that really hits is from BoJack Horseman. Actually,
Josh loves BoJack.
I love BoJack. When you have rose-colored glasses on, all the red flags just look like flags. Oh yeah, I think I've told you that quote too. I always like that line.
Wait, isn't that a warning sign though?
Yeah, that's more a warning sign, but
isn't that like saying when you're in a bad relationship but you have rose, like none of the red flags appear that bad?
Yeah, because that's what I was telling you for me in the past with relationships, and I guess you could relate too. Like I was very I always had the rose-colored glasses on things. Yeah.
Yes. And I think it's good for, and I'm sure a lot of you, if you're feeling like you're in love with someone, it's hard for me to say this and have it really resonate with you guys, but there is a difference between infatuation and love. And sometimes I think it's, if you feel like you're in this position right now where you're like in love, try to pull back and be like, is this love or is this just infatuation? And I wish I would have done that sooner in my life, because I feel like most of my early 20s and even my late teens to an extent, I was infatuated and I thought that was something more. But looking back, no, it was definitely just infatuation. And I think I could have saved myself a lot of time and energy if I would have just recognized that sooner.
Oh, yeah. Well, I think it comes back to idealistic love, and you don't actually, I think true love is like you can look at the great and the worst in someone and still be able to love them. Where, yeah,
you know
I think infatuation,
I would even take it a step further
to like,
and I would say not only is it that, but is this good for me? Because I think too often with relationships we're like, do I think they're a good person? Because more often than not you'll convince yourself, well, yeah, they're a good person, and like, yeah, I want to be with them because they just need some help, or they just need a coach. No. You gotta make sure that they are also good for you, because there is a good chance that you're giving more energy and more effort to the friendship or the relationship than they're giving back. And this unequal balance will create this yearning or this sense of obligation then at some point, where it just becomes normalized that you're only giving 70% and only receiving 30% in return. And that becomes your normal. So I do want you to be able to like check yourself and like, is this a 50-50 thing? Yeah.
No rose-colored glasses.
Yeah.
See it for how it is. But yeah, I love BoJack Horseman. I love that you love it, Anthony, and I definitely think if you I don't know. I don't think you've watched it. I don't know if it's your type of show though either.
I mean, I really liked, what was it, Rick and Morty?
Oh my god, Rick and Morty.
And I did not think I was going to like that, and I ended up loving that.
BoJack's definitely more it's definitely nowhere near Rick and Morty, because it's definitely more
like
feelings, people, how people act.
Oh,
it's like, you know, BoJack's this washed up celebrity, so it's kind of like him trying to keep this identity he created for himself. It's a lot about like identity,
like Schitt's Creek.
Personality. Oh, I love Schitt's Creek. Tim's finally starting to watch that too. I binged the show within like a month, all 6 seasons, and I watched it again.
Wait, did you really?
Yeah.
I didn't know you watched all of them.
Yes, I got through the entire
Oh my
show.
gosh.
Yeah.
Josh, how the heck did you get through it that fast?
Because I play World of Warcraft, and it's like the second monitor is just Schitt's Creek.
Dang.
But yeah, BoJack's really good. I like Todd. I think Todd's my favorite character in that show.
Is it the dog?
No, he's the one guy with the red sweatshirt and like the bluish curly hair. Yeah,
the hippie kind of guy.
Yeah, he's funny. Yeah, Todd's definitely my favorite. Oh my god, 3 minutes 30 seconds. I didn't do the 5 minute. I'm so sorry.
We're gonna have to get like a separate timer.
I don't know. I need like glasses it's just a timer. I won't forget then.
Do you say glasses?
Yeah. I don't see anything. All I see is a timer with them on.
Right. So yeah, I hope this one's been challenging for you guys in a good way, and I hope you are knocking it out of the park. I would definitely say I actually feel best about this one than my other hands.
Lena says, while this remembering what is good for yourself in a relationship rings so many bells, stayed with someone who had bad mental health issues until it started affecting my mental health. Oh yeah, been there. It puts a strain on you, and I don't know, there has to be a balance, because the reality is both parties are going to have problems, and if you feel like all you're doing is taking care of one of the parties' problems all the time, it does start to like, it really starts affecting you. Because I think it minimizes your own problems then a lot.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's what happened to me for a while is you take this strain of dealing with other people's problems. And I will say then the ugly of it is I feel like in relationships after that one, I tended to be the one with problems then too. So it's like a bad spiral in terms of like, I think it can change you too. I don't know.
No, I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's also good to note that maybe it's not the best time to be in a relationship. Because I think it's very easy to blame the other person, but there's some times where I'm like, no, I don't think either of you, like, we know of a situation where it's like, I don't think either of you are bad people. I think you're just bad for each other because neither of you are in a good state of mind outside of your relationship.
Oh, yeah.
And I feel like it just gets brought into then the relationship. And I think it would be better if you guys, you know, were separate in dealing with those first.
Oh yeah, it comes back to like, it's not like they're bad people, but I think some combinations brings out the worst in each other.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it's like, and there's no working with it beyond that. It's just, it turns ugly.
Mm-hmm.
I think generally some personalities just don't work together. And that doesn't, yeah, it doesn't make either person a bad person. It just means it's not a good, it's water and oil. It just doesn't always work. Oh yeah, 1 minute, guys.
Good job, Josh.
Thank you. Oh, Martin, hello.
Hey, Martin.
It's so good to see you. Miss you so much. We miss conventions so much. I hope you're doing good, Martin.
I actually did have kind of a down day last year where like I just genuinely miss seeing people at conventions. I like walking the show floor. I like seeing other artists, or like meeting new artists I've never seen, and I'm really excited for whenever they come back.
I feel like I'm kind of a shy person, and I think conventions were good for me because it was just a good way to like
kind of pop that.
Yeah,
bubble.
I got to meet a bunch of people and interact, and it was really good. 10 seconds.
Yeah, I feel pretty good about
5 seconds.
I'm leaving
3,
the backhand or the
2,
back finger really light.
1. All right.
I like
Perfect.
that contrast. I mean, I guess for the study I'll make it a little darker. But I do like the contrast of having fingers when they're overlapping be lighter or darker. Oh, see, now I regret making it mid-tone.
Oh, Aaron asked, do you have any suggestions to draw a realistic face?
You know what? It seems like a lot of you guys want a stream on that, so that is something
Yeah.
we will do sometime this month.
I agree. Yeah, we have that already down. Someone actually asked earlier too. So we have
For a face?
Yeah, we do. I wrote down face studies specifically to how to draw them in your own style too. So like looking at a face and being able to draw it in your own style, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah. Okay, so these were my 3 hand studies. Let me pull up. Or wait, is that zoomed in? There we go. So these were my 3 hands of the day. You can kind of see there's like a consistent look to all 3. So if you want to start posting your final results in the stream follow along channel, which is in the Discord, which there's a link below, we'll start doing the critiques soon. And I think looking at my hands, I would definitely say I use too much of the B pencil. The B pencil has a little bit more of the texture, grainy look. And I think it kind of is overwhelming in some areas where I like refining little details like cuticles and things. It doesn't mean I'm like edging everything out with a hard edge, but I think I would want to get in there with my 0.2 Oren's mechanical pencil. And I was able to do it with the 3rd hand a little bit more. And you can see some of the refinement in little areas, whether it's like the freckles or little arm hair or whatever. But I feel like the first one didn't have that. But I still like overall the values, and they were pretty fun. And I'm glad that you were able to see my big mistake on the 2nd hand where the fingers were way too long and you just got to erase the whole thing. Okay, so why don't we switch seats here?
Change places.
You know what? Let me get this though. Moved around. Move this over here. Move this over here. Get the Discord up.
Discord.
Oh gosh, why is that?
Oh, because it's the resized window.
Oh, let me turn
But
the
it
timer
should
off.
be. Oh, shoot. Okay.
Yeah, that was weird. Okay, so this is our Discord channel right here. And if you just post in the stream follow along, so you can see under current events, and that is where I will be grabbing the references from. Okay.
Alright.
Change places.
Change places.
So now I want you guys to know, I hope this was beneficial for you on just doing a study. If you have to go, if you don't want to stick around for the stream critiques, thanks for joining us, and hopefully give it a like before you leave. I know it helps my YouTube doing that. And yeah, hopefully we'll see you next Wednesday. All right, but for those of you who are staying here,
it's weird because I bleached half my hair off the other day by accident, and I feel like I'm just all forehead now. I got close to the camera. I was like, "Oh my god!"
Now you're front and center.
Right.
Okay, let me move this where you guys can see it. Where's my layers?
I'll try to read the little Discord comments as you go as well.
Yes. So we're gonna grab Zadrix first.
Perfect. Zadrix says, "Sorry, I did it earlier than the stream. I wanted to do this study with the stream, but I have classes tomorrow morning. Good night."
Oh, you know what? I'm gonna make a new file though, really quick.
We missed you today, Zadrix.
Let's put this over here. Alright, so this will be my reference one and my critique one. Let me see if you guys can see this. Move that down. There we go. Maybe. Oh, no. Yeah, there we go. Okay, so there's that. Is this Zadrix then?
Yes.
So right away I can tell there's a little bit of wobbliness with a lot of the proportions. I think the fingers have more of a curve to it than they would naturally. Let me make this smaller. So I think even this here feels way too curved, where in the reference you can see it has more of a slightly straight with like maybe a little bit of a bend at the end. I do think even lining up fingernails is a good thing for you to work on. These feel a little too triangle fingers, kind of like what I was mentioning earlier. And even like the positioning of the thumbnail, it looks like the thumbnail here, the top is like this, and on yours it feels too short and too small, and the entire last digit feels kind of broken because of that. So I have the thumbnail start out a little bit lower. Well, that's right, we have to do 3 for each one. I'll try to be a little quick then with each hand, just because I know that would be a lot to get through. This one already feels better. To me, this one feels more proportionally correct. I do think you should just thicken out some of the third digit a bit more on almost all of them. But then I think the turning of the finger, especially on the pinky, was kind of difficult for you because I can see the nail is kind of facing up this way, but in the reference it's kind of facing this way. So bring that nail around, and I think that will help give more of the sense of the bend of the finger. And then be careful of having too many push out joints like this, because to me it doesn't look like the reference where it's the knuckle pushing out. It looks like this weird I don't even know, not like a finger pimple, but it looks like a weird wart on the side of the finger. So you want to make sure that it feels like the knuckle, and you give it enough thickness on the curve of the knuckle to make it look like the actual curve of the knuckle on that side. And then I think similar with the 2 fingers here, just either thicken them out a little bit more. This one should be a little further out, and try to see your final digit not being so tiny. And I feel like that's something I might have to repeat with a few of the submissions, because I notice a lot of people tend to do that. Oh, and then you know what? Your last one I think is actually your best one. And this one I would consider the hardest one. Ooh. So I think overall this is actually pretty good. I think, I mean, this is more nitpicky, but I would definitely look at how things align. So you can see the side of this hand, the top of the hand here is more of a straight line down. Where yours kind of goes like this, but you want it to be more of a straight line for the most part. And I think that's just looking like taking a step back from your work and then really trying to see the shapes side by side. So even like this palm is a little thicker in the meatier part there. And I feel like there's just a lot of little adjustments that you could do. And then something that actually my friend Carrie was talking about this past weekend was try not to make the nail beds too dark on the edge, because in the reference, especially if you turn the drawing black and white, there really isn't like a solid edge, and a lot of the times defining where the nail bed ends or where the cuticle begins. So you have to like lightly shade and give the impression of it. So on the fingernail in the back, it looks like this press-on nail or something that isn't as natural. So I would honestly almost take it out and maybe lightly show it, but honestly, I would barely show it at all because it'll feel more natural. Okay, so those are Zadric's.
Perfect.
I feel like if you guys could maybe even share all of your hands on one post, that might be easier. Okay, the next one.
All right, so next up is Minari, which says, I enjoyed adding the bone too much.
I would say for yours, I think I would definitely look at fingernail sizing. I feel like you're making them look really, really stumpy, as if like they chew their nails a lot. Sometimes people get that with shorter nails. But I think you're showing too much of the skin on the top part of the nail, where if you look at the reference on some of my, I mean, this is my hand, some of my nails, you can't even see the skin because of the angle. So I would pull that nail way higher. And I think kind of like what I was saying on the last one, try not to define the nail bed too much, because that's where it'll look like press-on nails, and they look more artificial. And then definitely with the thumb, I feel like really show some of the, like where the joint pushes out just a little bit in the reference, and then the thumb, really give it that confident angle in that bone here. I feel like this is a really good, almost triangular, like a curved triangle angle, and push that out. And I think overall you have pretty good finger sizes. Maybe just a little thicker in some areas. Yeah, I think those would be my biggest critiques. And then, you know, separate the thumb or push it a little lower than you have it. And I guess this would be another proportion thing, or just looking at the reference, because the thumb is closer to the hand there. And something else that you could note is see where the top of the thumb lies? See how it's kind of below all the webbing, where on yours, it's above the final webbing. So this is another thing where you just look at your image and the space relation to other areas in the subject matter. So that might help you out. Okay. Thank you for submitting. Next one.
It's Lua. Hello everyone, it's my first time following along the stream. I have a little bit of a hard time with hands, so it's great practice. Thank you for joining us today.
Yeah, no, thank you for joining, especially being your first time. So immediately I can see definitely some good stuff. I think you did a great job with the wrinkles in the middle of the first knuckle, or the second knuckle, however you want to call it. And I like that you kind of have some definition of the first knuckle. Sometimes people will draw circles like really lightly to help define when they're shading around the knuckle part, and that can help, and I can kind of see you doing that. I think for you, it seems like the biggest struggle are definitely the nails. And like I said, I have a good hunch that this is going to be a lot of people that came to the stream, because nails are really difficult. And especially when you start to shade the finger so dark, having a nail that's not shaded at all really then makes it look like painted nails, or something that's a little more unnatural. So I would shade them just as equally. And actually, these are pretty good. I feel like it's giving more implication to the nail bed rather than like giving a harsh definition to them. I would say though, this pinky feels really off. It feels like it's way too skinny all the way up. And I think for you, I'd work on the webbing and give just a little indication, a hint, a tickle of the bump. And then the webbing, I think, is where you really could push it more. That'll give some thickness to the bottom part of the pinky as well. So and you can see before and after, even just those minor adjustments make the pinky look from being way too thin and too parallel from the base to the tip to having a little more thickness and more indications as to the knuckles. So yeah, thank you for submitting. I know there's gonna be a lot of these, so I'm gonna try to give some good pieces of advice as quickly as I can so I can keep moving.
Next up is Leon's sketchbook. Says had to skip final drawing due to life.
Ah, that's totally okay. So I guess I'll judge you on the two that we have first. Okay, so I assume these two are the warm-ups. Wait, what was my other one? So this one. Okay, so the outside ones. I do think immediately your hands, I mean, they do have more of a style to them. So I'm not going to critique the style too much, but they feel very chunky and very like misshapen, like what would that be, like a vibration all the way up and down. And I think a little bit of that has to do with what my teacher in high school used to tell me I did a lot, which was chicken scratching. And actually, can I have my tea?
Oh yeah. And
basically, thank you. So chicken scratching is where when you go down the side of subject matter, whatever it would be, instead of like going really smooth like that, you're doing like quick strokes all the way down. And that's what is giving this very warbly effect. So something that I have to kind of remind myself, I mean, doing studies is a little different because you want to move fast. Got to move fast like Sonic. But in this case, I think it would be good to slow it down and try to create a little bit more clean edge. Even if you're doing the chicken scratching technique where you're constantly like drawing over, you can see how you can create still more of a smooth line. And I think that could help you out a lot. I would say proportions are definitely off in most areas. I love the cross hatching that you're doing in different areas. But I also feel like the cross hatching isn't working necessarily in the shadow areas versus the light areas. Like your darkest shadow is here, here, and here, kind of the whole right side. But when you look at the reference image, this really shouldn't be in shadow at all. If anything, I think this drawing would have been stronger if you left that almost more open and kind of give more of a space, more of a breath to a resting zone for the viewer eye. And I would also look at the webbing in between. So here I would definitely create more of a flat angle, because right now you have this triangle and it's cutting way too deep into the hand. So I think to give the palm more of that thickness, I think giving it more of that underlying pentagon shape here will help out. Let me grab a different color. So always remember that pentagon and trying to find it. And I think having that line here kind of helps as well. And then I don't know what happened on this side, but yeah, shave off that entire finger there. So I do like some of the things I'm seeing in terms of like exploring contrast, and I think it's really fun because I do the same thing, especially like having a darker finger overlapping darker or lighter areas. I think I would just really study your proportions, because I think they're looking a little off. But it honestly looks like by the second hand you were feeling it a bit more. The wrist still feels a little thick. Let me look at the reference here. Yeah, the wrist definitely feels too thick, and it should be more angled. So it should be more like this. But yeah, that's something I would look into. But keep having fun with your exploration. I like some of the scratch marks, and kind of know where and when to use them, and if it's adding to the visualization of like rounding it out, or if it's kind of distracting. Okay, so that would be my advice with you. And thank you for submitting. Next one.
All right, next up is Mulan. Haven't really drawn with just pencil like this in years. This was tough, but with lack of practice, I'm okay with these.
Oh, and I should mention, if you guys post these on your Instagram stories, I will either reshare them as a group or even individually, because I like when I see people on Instagram that are sharing these. So yeah. Okay, so for this one, I love some of what I see here. You're definitely more of a hard edger, which is not bad at all. I do that from time to time as well. And I like that you're grouping a lot of the shadows into separate shapes. I will say I think your proportions are pretty good, but I think they get a little too thick in some areas. Like in the thumb, this middle section feels far too thick, where if you look in the reference, the middle section is almost the smallest section. It's almost the same size as the top part, where here there's like a clear difference in size from the thumb final digit to the middle digit. And I think this is the only one that feels a little more off than the other. The other fingers feel pretty good for the most part. I would say maybe the middle digits on, I guess, all of the fingers feel a little weird, because even this one, I would push that wrinkle down, because the size between the middle and the top should be relatively the same size. And even the final one, these 3 blocks are roughly the same size. Where on yours, let me take off what I did. You can see how this one feels much smaller than the other 2. So I think that will help out, because if you take some of the length off from the 3rd one, like that, it will just create more of a better proportion and give the palm more of that pentagon feel. And then even with how the thumb attaches to the palm here, and have that one wrinkle that goes kind of horizontal, I think it would give more to that underlying pentagon shape as well. And then for your other one, this one was definitely tricky. And I think for you, this may have been a challenge, because I can see more confidence with that first hand than I do with this one. And I think I see a lot of proportion issues with like the thumb, and like even the angle at which the thumb is turned is just, it's like 10% off. Where like in the reference, it's kind of facing straight up almost in that angle, where yours is kind of facing almost this direction. Okay, I think there's a lot here where it's like looking at the relation to the fingers to each other, or parts of the hand. So like the top of the thumb and this finger, there's like a very slim gap in between them, but you see how in yours it's a much larger one. So I think this is where I would look at taking out the eraser. And I know how much it sucks when you already have something like refined or valued out, and I would erase and try to get it as close as you can, because I think that is hurting a lot of the rest of the image, because then the pinky looks like it's coming out like in the middle of the palm because of the way that we're seeing it from the angle. And then similar to the last one, I think if you're going to have value everywhere, and I sometimes tend to do that if I'm doing more of a realistic study, really make sure that your dark values aren't as heavy in these lighter areas. You know, and I think it'll help read more clearly in terms of the value of the shape. Let me grab it darker. Something like that, where you can kind of see more of that, the lighter side of the palm there. So yeah, I hope that helps. And thank you for submitting. On one of our Patreon members. Well, thank you, thank you.
Next up, we have batteries not included.
I love that username.
Some weird spacing between the hands, but I did more shading than I usually do.
Ooh, like this one's weirdly more in like the artsy realm, where it almost feels like a dolly, or more of like a experimenting with proportion in a way that's intentional. So obviously I think you're posting this not being like this experimental proportioning, but I kind of like it as like almost like a creature hand or something. Or it almost looks like Gollum's hand from Lord of the Rings.
Yeah, kind of. It's like just the right amount of spooky to me.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that happens when the palm feels smaller than the fingers, where the fingers kind of become super large, and or not even super large, but just larger than the palm and longer, where you kind of get this like more creepy look to them. So immediately I would say, if you're trying to go for more of a realistic aspect, if you weren't trying to stylize this, I would definitely look at tightening up some areas, because you're so loose. And it's fun because I kind of like that, because it has more of this explorative nature to it. But I think as more of a realistic objective, this thumb feels very, very loopy. Let me grab a darker color here. And I would really pull it in. Like that. And I think if you have a thumb base that you can base the rest of your fingers off of, you can start to see where maybe some of that proportion issue can be controlled here. Actually, this pinky was not that bad. I think it's when you get into these top fingers, it looks like this was an accident or an erase, or something that could have been erased. But then similar to the last one I just critiqued, the space between the thumb and the finger, like this is a very large gap, and I would definitely focus on pulling that finger way down. Like that. So I think for yours, it's more looking at tightening it up, and before you start defining value, really make sure that your structure feels solid. So yeah, thank you for submitting. And oh, there was more
Those
than one.
three, yeah.
Let me grab one more. Yeah. So I'll try to do at least one hand critique or 2 hand critique per person. So it's funny looking at your hand studies, like they feel exploratory in a way that is like intentionally wobbly. And I don't know if that's really what you're going for, because even like the section here, like I know if you're looking at the reference that this has more of a straighter edge, but it has this like wobbliness that I kind of like. But okay,
It almost feels like a wax hand melting or something. It's got
Yeah.
like a cool, yeah.
It feels very intentional. But if I'm going to give you a critique on like a realistic side of things, I would say this is very wobbly, and I think the structure underneath this hand feels very long, and the fingers all kind of come out at the same point, or if anything, they kind of come out like this. But in the reference, it's definitely more of an angle like that, and you want to grab that pentagon first and foremost. Actually, it's more like straight down. Well, my drawing is on the same layer. Hold on. So I think, yeah, having a good, like maybe underdrawing here could have helped out in just seeing where the hand or where the fingers even come out of this initial shape, because I think that will really help you if you're going for more of a realistic study. And definitely with the side of the hand, I would definitely smooth out those bumps, and just keep looking at proportions. And I think if this was meant to be more of a realism study, I would really do more practices of either take pictures of your own hands or find references online. I feel like doing your own hands is the best way to do hand studies, because if you ever need to look at something, if it feels a little off or you want to see it in different lighting, you just take a photo of your hand again. So you can see before and after how having that underlying pentagon to work off of can help. But yeah.
I mean, I love the wobbliness.
I know, I weirdly
really
like
cool.
the wobbliness, but on a realism critique, I think it is proportionally off. But that can obviously be helped just through practice.
Next up, we have Eunuch. I feel like I get more lost with the rendering shading part each time we do these. Got some proportion issues, but otherwise they're okay, I guess.
Let me grab both of yours because I believe you had 2 images here. Okay, I can kind of see already what's happening. So I think with you, it's, oops, move this aside. I used to do this a lot in high school where all my shading had to be very controlled and it was very boxed in. I think my biggest advice to you before even talking about the hands is try to let loose with your shading and be a little bit more okay with having, you know, like strokes that are kind of going throughout and being able to paint over them or under, or not paint over, to draw over and include them. Because I feel like it's so tight, where I used to have this problem too, where my drawings would feel very rigid, very stiff, because I was trying to control it too much. So immediately I would say, like, let go of some of that control and have fun with having more loose line, or even with your shading, try to let it kind of bleed into other areas and work with it. But in terms of the actual hand, I would say on your first one, you do have some good definition here. Like I can tell you love detail and you kind of want to get to that stage quicker. I would say proportionally, this is pretty good, but the fingers all feel just a tad too long. And honestly, all you would need to do, kind of like what I had to do with my second hand, I would erase the fingers and just honestly, when you redraw them, oh, why isn't liquify working? Oh, what? Never mind. Apparently, I'm not going to be able to liquefy today. But if anything, I would just make them just like a hair smaller. Like honestly, it's like the fingernail smaller than what you have. I think your proportions were really okay besides that. So you can see how that already feels kind of better, and even the length here is probably just a touch shorter. So yeah, I don't know if you can see that on the screen. Yeah, the fingers just feel just a fingernail too long. And then in terms of your shading with these two, I like how you're demonstrating a lot of the light value within the hand, because in the photos, I don't have a lot of harsh shadows. Well, I guess I have a little bit on this one, where I would definitely show a kind of crippled ring finger here. No, actually, I think this is a good job trying to carry that through. I think whenever I'm doing a finger that's coming toward the camera or toward the viewer, I try to, oops, let me grab a darker color. I try to shade in the direction, or I try to shade around the shape or the object that's facing me. So since I know this is more of a cylindrical shape, I try to do lines and strokes that follow that cylinder. And over time, the more that you kind of do those strokes, if you do them really lightly, you'll kind of see the impression of that shape come to life. And even with this finger here, I would do the same thing. And this I would make way darker too. But also with the nail bed, be careful about outlining. I think you did a much better job with the thumb down here with the nail. But I would say this one feels too much like a press-on nail, and I would almost erase a lot of the darker value that you included and maybe just edge out like that. So honestly, sometimes with nail beds, just try not to give a dark, definitive line to edge it all out. That might help. So yeah, that would be my advice for you. And don't be too hard on yourself, Eunuch. I feel like these are good. I think letting go of some of that control will help you out. Okay, next up.
Next up is Alice. I only had time to do 2 hands.
Oh, these are great. Ooh. And actually, even with Alice's, you can see the underlying structure in orange. I kind of like that you left that. These are great. I would say my next advice to you would be, well, hold on, let me look at the proportions on the first. Yeah, this is great. I love that you're defining the details. The wrinkles look great. I guess maybe not having the nail bed be so embedded, I think. Well, it's funny because with this, the way that you rendered it, it kind of has a scratchy pen, almost comic look to it. So it almost works for that. But I would make this nail bed probably a little bigger on the side. But overall critique, I would say maybe start now playing, because I can already tell you're a strong artist and you definitely understand proportion. I would definitely start maybe experimenting with putting more of the shadow in, or more of the object in a shadow, especially with your style. I think it would really lend itself to that way of rendering, where you kind of block off even more areas of shadow so it becomes even more clear to the viewer looking at it where that shadow or where that light source is coming from. Because yeah, that's great. And then the second hand, kind of the same thing, where I think pushing more of the shadow. Oh, actually, this is a great area right here. So under the pinky, do you see in the reference area how it's actually lighter than the pinky that's overlapping it? This is where I first started to develop my contrast love, because I draw hands so much. I started to realize a lot of the times the finger would be darker than the area it was overlapping. And I think that really affected me, because I started just adding like a darker gradient on fingers going down to begin with. And one, I just like that look. But two, it can help define that the light source is coming from overhead. And the finger, the bottom of it is catching a shadow, but the palm of your hand is still catching that light. And that's what gives that cool contrast. So even though the top of here would be catching the light, you can see how the underside of the finger would be more in the darker value. And it creates that really cool contrast. And I would just, focus on the small things like that. But I think these are great. I think you did a great job. And I think maybe just explore more of like blocking shadow shapes. So really good job. Really good job, Alice. Oh,
sorry.
This is an important one. Oh.
Potential spam, decline.
Decline. Okay, next one.
All right, next up is
Oh, Luna was. I didn't even know you were here today. Joined late again, so only got one hand, and I didn't get to render it enough to get rid of the sketch lines. But this was really fun. I always love your stuff, Luna.
No, I think you did a great job with a lot of the proportions. I think there's like minor tweaks throughout. Like I definitely think down here, like this could have been shaved off a bit more. Honestly, I think you're even looking at your work. I feel like it's getting better and better with proportioning. I do feel like the two fingers on this edge are a little long. Let me see. Why am I seeing? Oh, you know why? Because this finger here, I feel like this was the tricky finger for a lot of you. You can see how the gap between it should be smaller, but not only that, the finger only goes out to about here, roughly. So like if the thumb's direction went straight up, it kind of follows that same plane on the reference. So I think because this one juts out further, that's why these feel like they're so much longer. Because then these should be pushed even a little lower and then probably like here. Because here's another thing of like looking at the reference and kind of gauging the relationship on where to begin things. So when I look at where to start this finger, I'm not just kind of putting it where I think it will go on the thumb. I look at, okay, it kind of follows the same line as that nail bed. So I'm going to have it continue on. So if this is your nail bed here, I'm going to have it continue off of that. So I think just continuing to look at the relationship between the different areas of your subject, between your subject matter, I think will really help you get a better proportioned look in the end. Because I would say your proportions are pretty good. It's just now like fine editing that you could do like adjust. Oh my gosh, give me my tea. Adjustments on.
It's a lot of talking.
There we go. Adjustments. And good job adding the freckles.
Breathe.
Oh no, I'm good. I think sometimes when I talk too fast, it's like, ugh, and then okay, I need to get some tea. All right, this one's from Ventus.
Perfect. Actually, no comments on this one.
Okay, so for yours, I would say these are pretty good, and I can tell you're pretty comfortable adding value and shadow and placement of that. I would say your proportions are what I would work on. Specifically with the second one, you can see how the palm feels longer, but literally, hold on, let me take this. I think honestly, all you'd have to do is like this minor adjustment.
What tool is that?
Oh, the selection tool.
Yeah.
Isn't that crazy?
Yeah, that was cool.
So like, let me show before and after. See how by like bringing it back in, it actually makes it feel more in proportion. Maybe I could even move it over just a hair. Oop. There. So I think this is one of those things where sometimes when I draw live on stream too, I commit to a proportion or a structure too early, and I really should just take a second, like even if it was like 5 seconds, like take a step back from it. Because I think when we're so close and focused on what we're working on, we can't see how misproportioned it might actually be. So I think that would be my advice to you, because all the first two feel like they're just a little off. And even with this one, I can't use the liquefy, but essentially what I would do is I would just take this whole section and move it over a little bit because it feels like this rectangle or the pentagon is just stretched, and it creates the whole hand looking wider than it actually is. But the third one, I feel like you actually did do a really good job with proportion, and you're one of the few that really got the spacing in between those two fingers, and I feel like because of that, the rest of the hand feels so much more in proportion. I would say the minor tweak here would be, you can see how in the reference the knuckle, and this is what was throwing me off when I was doing mine, the point of the knuckle is even lower than the nail bed, where on yours the point of the knuckle is above the whole thumb itself. So this is where just like space relation, and I feel like I'm going to repeat this a lot throughout this critique, is so important, because those minor adjustments can really help the proportion overall. So yeah, great job. And like I said, I think your shading is great. I think just even continuing doing the same level of shading you are, but like really working on those initial proportions. Oh, yeah. Oh, Elpa.
Elpa.
Elpa's one of our most active Discord members. You're even in the... Oh yeah, Josh, did you see I added the different levels you can be in Discord now?
Oh, you got those on there?
Yeah, so if you look, see now we have Rookie Apprentices and Curious Mages.
Oh, I love it.
So these two are the top talkers, like the most active in our Discord.
Yeah.
Anyways.
Thank you, guys. So Apple says, so the last time during the Harry study, you told me about to maybe try to manage my time for shading so I could be able to put more values. So after the first hand, I just took an HB and went for it, and also smaller so I could shade more. I'm glad I did the stream because I've never done a hand study and I needed it. Thank you. Also, P.S. Sorry for the poor luminosity.
It's totally fine. That helped me. Get out of here. You're doing good.
Oh.
You know what I think is really helping you too is I can see even with the third one you started to draw smaller, and I think you're learning how to be more efficient with your time. I actually, even though I normally start with a 2H, I actually love your HB, I think, the best. I think if you took an HB on top of what you had here can really help. My 2H pencil can usually create more of a buttery, smooth look, where an HB is a little rougher, and then when I use a B, it really adds texture. So if you watch this stream again, if you look at the way I draw the hands, I kind of make it look really textured, and in the end I'll use a 2H and I'll really kind of smooth out those gradients in the rendering from one area to the next. So for yours, I actually think your proportions are great. I think you're doing a lot successfully. These feel really good. I would say the third hand, the fingers feel a little thicker. Let me look at the reference here. All right, no, they don't look that bad. I think maybe the shading is throwing me off on down here. And you know what? It's just this pinky feels too far out. If we honestly just cut that down, and this is where we're getting more nitpicky. I think that can help even that little adjustment there. And then you see how it's more of a triangle you have, where in the reference there's like a clear plane, there's a flat angle. I think just defining that more can help as well.
I think it's so cool that you're taking advice from a different study and then applying it to these ones too.
Yeah, this is great.
Like, yeah, being that self-aware to be like, oh yeah, I'm gonna try it this time.
And I think the same thing I said about Alice's, because you have such a good sense of your proportions already, I would look now at the values. So like here, same thing, where I would make this finger more dark because it's really the one that's casting the most shadow, and same with this second finger, and letting some of those lighter values shine. It's like under here. Actually, I shouldn't be using pure white because it'll look really bright. As you can see. But that area under the finger, I would really focus on that contrast. Let me grab this lighter gray. But I like that you didn't edge out the nail bed on the snail because it's really easy to want to do that. And maybe just have like a little more sliver of a gap there. So yeah, I think this is great. Maybe have some more areas on the edges that are more defined, like the wrinkles here. Have just a little bit more of that edge to them. Maybe some of the arm hair, just to give it a bit more texture. But I think this is great. I think you're definitely on the right path. So good job. Hey, Jonathan Liddell.
Wonderful Jonathan Liddell.
Oh, there are a lot of submissions today.
Yeah, I think this is the most we've had in a while.
All right, let's see here. You know what's funny with yours immediately, Jonathan? I feel like you were learning how to use your time more effectively as it went from hand to hand. So for the first one, I can tell you were probably a little stuck with the proportions, and that's why there's not a lot of shading. I think you have a similar thing as to one of the earlier ones where there's a little bit of a wobbliness, which I feel like it's easier to tighten wobble than to loosen someone that's too tight. Like the one that I talked about earlier, where I relate to that, where I draw too tight as well, so I have to like learn to loosen it up. I think for you, I would try to keep it a little more tight. And I think some of that might help with like the edges, rather than having like a bunch of back and forth lines. Instead, I would look at how can I define the edge here with maybe like one line. and keep it a little more cleaner in the end. I would say definitely with proportions, I would, same thing like a lot of the other ones, like, okay, the tip of the thumb is kind of the end of the webbing on the pinky. So the end of the pinky here, I would pull that up. And a lot of this, I think it's a good practice doing it, either digital or traditional, it doesn't really matter. But like really trying to line things up either horizontally or vertically on like where do those relations fit together. And that's honestly why I love drawing hands, because that's all it really is. You have so many different digits to compare and contrast where it ends, where it begins, especially when using a live reference, or not a live, but using a reference. And then same with like this finger here, I would keep it more straight all the way up. And it's like, I like that you have more of the storybook look to your drawings, because you want to make things a little more fun to look at. So I think that's why that's a little bit more of those curves. But I think doing like a realism study, I would really try to focus on making it as close to the reference as possible with more of those straight edges. And then I think even with the fingernail beds, kind of like we were saying before, I'm like here, rather than doing like a box, I would do a lot of things here. I think I would rather focus on the finger value rather than the actual nail bed itself. It's like, yeah, there is a nail bed there, but I would rather focus on the overall value of the entire finger, and that's what I would work on rather than try to like define to the person looking at this that there is a nail bed, because it's almost implied that there's going to be a nail, and you can kind of get away with that rather than being like, no, this is where the nail begins and ends. On your other two, it feels like this is where the confidence started to set in a little bit, because I can see you exploring the value more. And once again, like all the other ones that we've been talking about with this, try to play with the value and like see it in the reference, and then be able to capture it in your execution. So that light source underneath of that pinky finger here, and let it be darker and let that contrast be seen. Have the plumpness of the finger, especially the pinky, where because you're pushing down, the skin and the little bit of, you know, muscle and fat and everything under it is getting squished a little bit, so it's going to create that plumper effect. So push it out, and there we go. And yep, here's another area, like I can see you wanting to curve it quite a bit, but it's okay if you have to keep it more smooth and more of a straight line. I think the only big critique I would say on this one was, I think the direction of the arm was off. Let's say it was more of a straight down. And then, I don't know why I can't use liquefy today, but same thing, I would just push that hand in a little bit. I think the palm was just a hair too long. And then lastly, for the third one, I think you fell into the same thing with a lot of the other ones, is like lining things up. And whenever I see a shape that really stands out, like definitely make sure that you utilize that in the execution. So in this one, this straight edge right there on the reference, I want to see it in your execution. So for this, I would pull back there, because those are the little shapes that are going to stand out and really make a difference in the final execution. And I think you have a very similar to what I had in high school, where it's doing a lot of scratchy lines to create the edge. But I would almost challenge you, whenever we do another study like this and you join in, I would try to do, like, let's say for this outside of the hand here, let me make it a hard brush actually. If I were you, I would take it more slow, and I would try testing or challenging yourself to go at a slower pace and create more of a clean line. And I'd be very curious to see your results, because then I think some areas, like the shadow areas, works with all the scratchiness. But I'd be very curious if then the areas that don't have as defined of an edge would just read better and cleaner. Because even this, you can see how if we just clean up the edge a little bit, and even push in with that wrinkle section there, You can see how that just reads a little cleaner. But obviously, I think you're a wonderful person, and I want to keep pushing you to improve because I think you can do great stuff. And I would say that would be my big critique for you is like trying to slow it down in some areas and then try to create more of a clean edge and see if that helps. So yeah, thank you, Jonathan, for submitting. We can't wait to see you in Scotland. All right, next up.
Radivir says, try to focus on speed. I'm pretty pleased with hand number 2.
Ooh, yeah, these are great. I can already tell if proportion-wise, these are pretty sound. You know what though? There are minor adjustments with this one too. I think it's like it looks good overall. Like I could definitely tell the proportions feel good, but then it's like little things like you can see in the initial reference how this is more straight up, and if anything, it bends a little to the left at the end. Where yours, it immediately goes like out. So I think this would just be one of those challenges of like lining things up horizontal or vertical and like, okay, is it leaning this way or is it leaning Pisa that way? And capturing that in the final result. But I think you do a really good job at capturing those shapes that I've been talking about through all these critiques, and you're not superimposing the nail bed, which I think is well executed. I think your second hand is probably your best one out of all 3. And I think from here, just exploring more of those shadow shapes and even the harder wrinkles that have more of the X wrinkle here, like those are definitely hard to draw because they're a little more unusual. But I think your shaping is really good. And then the third one, I think you actually did a really good job at capturing some of the spatial awareness in different areas. I think you did a great job with some of that. I think now it's just shading, because I can feel you have a very light shading technique throughout. I would push that darker in some areas and there we go, and let that shine, because right now like this finger doesn't have any shading to it. And if this was more of like a style render, I totally get it. But I think for a realism study, I would definitely still push those values. And maybe this was a time thing. Maybe it was a little crunched at the end. But overall, I think you did a really good job. But don't be scared to go dark, because I think just like how I tend to go a little lighter, sometimes I think you should experiment going darker. And then this one.
Anthony.
So Anthony, great job on your little logo. To be honest, I think your V and A, well, actually a lot of your letters, I think they're just really cute. They have that fantasy feel. Specifically the A. I don't know why, but I love this solid gold wrapping. So yeah, good job. And I'm starting to see more of that stone effect in the wood. Yeah, I'll keep working on the wood texture though a little bit. Okay, next up.
All right, next up is Amelia K.
Wait, no.
Did I skip one?
I think so, yeah.
Oh, Jadalina, sorry about that. Thanks for letting us follow along. Edit, I've been so busy with being a mom these days, so it's been 11 months since I've drawn anything, but don't hold back. So I really appreciate this draw along. It's my first time doing something like this, and it was a lot of fun. Well, thank you for joining.
That was very sweet. So you know what? Immediately I can tell your third hand, I can see way more confidence. I mean, kind of what we were just talking with Jonathan. I think the first one has a lot of those like quick pencil marks or strokes on top of each other. Where in the third one, I can see a lot more of the smooth, purposeful lines that it feels really clean. I think my advice to you would be primarily on shading, because I think proportions on the second and third hand are great. I think the first one's a little off, but I think you definitely picked it up in the final two. If I could see with shading, I can see a lot of like hesitancy. I can feel it just looking at your drawings. And I think there's a lot of like laying down the pencil mark and then like shading it with your finger or a blending stump. I think I would work way more on putting more value down. And even if you're using a lighter pencil, like maybe if you're a little nervous doing that, try working with a 2H, lay it on pretty heavy in the shadow areas. And then if you want, try pulling out your HB or even a B or a 2B if you want to go really bold and like really try to get those shadows darker. Because I think as of right now, I can tell that there's a hesitancy. And I think it's holding back the drawing as a whole. But overall, I think the proportion, especially on the third one, this one feels very angelic. And I almost like drawing hands like this where they almost have very little shading to them, where it feels very flat and almost like purposefully valueless, because it creates more of like a graphic image rather than a realism hand.
I was thinking, is it Pearl Mermaid? I think is the one you have. The hands like really kind of like
yeah.
Yeah.
It's like just empty.
Yeah.
It's like a negative space almost. I mean, that's another very like Muka Art Nouveau way of rendering where it's like none at all almost. Or like you use lines to indicate shape or form. But I would say with you, I would definitely work on shading and try not to shade with or blend with your finger as much. I feel like that's also maybe more comforting to like do a quick blend it out. But I would challenge you, and maybe if you join one of these again, maybe only work with like a HB pencil and try your best not to use your finger to shade at all or to blend.
I mean, 11 months not drawing. This is your comeback. This is awesome.
Yeah, right?
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, 11 months. I mean, that third hand, I can just see the confidence difference in the first and third hand so much. I mean, even the first and second, like look at them side by side. The proportions feel so much better. The lines already feel a little cleaner from that first to second jump. So yeah. Thanks for coming, by the way, and submitting. Next up.
Amelia K. Hi. Well, hello. It was very challenging to make it on time, so my studies are not finished, but it was also so fun to participate. Greetings from Poland.
Oh, well, hello from Poland. So I think for yours, I mean, you went with color too, which is a whole nother avenue in itself. I will say, I think for the shadows, I can see a little bit of it where, I mean, some of it kind of works for me, the gray, but I would work with more of a tinted shadow color, whether it's red or more of a warmth color. Because oftentimes in skin tones, because we have blood vessels and a bunch of different colors in our hands, oftentimes when there's a shadow, it's not just a direct like gray or black shadow. It has more of a tint to it. But I think because you're doing color studies on top of doing like quick hand studies with proportions and all that stuff, I think maybe color just got left behind because it's hard to fit all that in a half hour. But I would pull some of these like pinkier tones or more like redder tones in some of the areas of the palm where you can see it. I think that would help out a lot. And then I think this finger specifically, it feels like it's just a shadow all the way down. But if you look at the reference, the first knuckle actually is pretty lit up. And it's really, even in like the wrinkle, you can see some of the lighter area. So I would just be very aware of where you're placing shadow. And then also, I think having some of these lighter tones butt up against, and the same thing like we said with a lot of these, like right under this pinky, have it be lighter and work it around. I would say overall your proportions are pretty good. I think on your first one, the fingers feel a little thin to me. Let me look at the reference here. Yeah, this feels a little too thin. I think just thickening it up a little bit can go a long way here. And I think even more so, I think the smoothness of the skin, but I feel like that's a time thing. I think if you had more time, you'd be able to add more of the nuances with the wrinkles and the vein that's underneath that you can see in the bone, and some of the arm hair, like kind of splitting up how smooth that looks. But I think that's a time thing. So overall, I would say these are pretty good. I would just say knowing that just don't go to black or gray for shadows, especially with skin, unless if the reference calls for it. And then also with like the middle of the palm here, I want to see some of these wrinkles. I want to see some of those changes in shape. So it implies that there's more of a meaty part of the palm. And you see how just even those 2 brush or 3 brush strokes there add so much more of a curve to the object as a whole. So yeah, that would be my critique for that one.
I think that was like quite the challenge to do color and proportions all within 30 minutes of time. Yeah.
Oh, Felix.
Next up, Felix. Here we go. The last one was definitely the hardest. I really want to do more art, but finishing my computer science degree is so much work and I'm already behind schedule. Summer can't come soon enough. You're so close, Felix.
Yeah. You're getting there. I would say these feel a little, the first one feels a little off to me from you because I know how good you are, but I feel like there was some like a battle almost. It was like fighting some of the proportions. And I feel like by the third one, this one feels good. But this one feels a little off in some areas to me. And then even with the arm hair, it feels too sporadic, or not sporadic enough, where I think you just need more of those lines. Like this pinky feels very strange to me. Maybe it's like the way that it's shaded. And maybe this will help you when I shade something, or when I try to shade, like going up a cylindrical object, whether it's a finger or whatever, I try to shade in the direction of the object, in the way that it curves around. And I think it creates more of the implication of the roundness, where I feel like there was a lot of shading going up and down, which sometimes can flatten out the object as a whole. And I would say for the second one, I feel like the wrist is really thick compared to the hand. I think if this was pulled in, I think that could help. And then I think the length here feels a little long. Let me scooch this in. Actually, I would make this bigger. Let's see what that looks like. See how the thing, it just feels a little stretched out. So I'm pushing it back in. You did actually capture the area under the pinky. I think you did a great job there. That was like one of the main things I was trying to see in people's work. Yeah, and I would say just even work more on the shadows, because I think you can have more definition in your values throughout. And even here, I think the same thing where you're going up and down with the shading. I would almost recommend going more left to right on this kind of a shading area. And it's okay if you have like the whole area be a slightly darker value, because I can see how you're trying to give the roundness by adding like the middle of each finger to be lighter or to have no shading at all. But it actually can look more realistic if you have only like areas of highlight. Like even this finger, we could neutralize the top here. I think that would help you. I mean, like I said, I've seen you on a lot of these streams, and I think you do a lot of great work. And I think this one, for these studies, I think there were just areas throughout the first two hands that felt like you could just do minor adjustments to improve on. And then for the third hand, let me turn this here. I feel like this reads more confident to me, even though it's lighter. I think you're getting a lot of the spatial recognition that I've been talking about on this entire critique section of the stream. And I think maybe even pulling some of the softer shading on this side of the hand here, and maybe letting it not be pure white. It's like if I did, because I think especially with the paper texture being white, you can really have the hand stand out against it. By even making it like even just a lighter value, like just a slightly gray value, you can see the difference just even there, how it just pulls it and separates it from the background a bit more. So yeah, great job. And I really do wish you the best of luck with your studies. I know how stressful that could be. Okay, next up we have Fem. Man, there are a lot of submissions today.
All right, Fem says, really struggled with time and getting the proportions down, but I still ended up trying to speed up for the last two drawings since I wanted to try a bit of shading too. Could have really used your third arm to draw for me. Yeah, sorry for the bad quality images. Don't really have a good light source in my room and a good camera.
It's totally okay. I would say here, it looks like your second hand to me feels the strongest. Your first one felt a little wobbly, and I think the proportions feel off because I think you needed more of an underdrawing, kind of like what we said with a few of the earlier ones. Like really find, there we go. Really find your pentagon shape first, and then work off of that. Because I think even with like the thumb, let me grab it darker. I think making this a bit smaller. Even pushing some of this out here. And then I think each of your fingers feel a little small, and then they kind of triangle out just a little bit at the end. They're not like pure triangles, but they definitely, have a little bit of a slimness to them. And then even with this finger, I would make it just a tad straighter. And I think why hands are so hard to draw, because there's a lot of nuance to them. It's like slight bumps, slight curves, slight things here and there that make a hand feel realistic. And I think capturing that can be really difficult. So sometimes I can see it with even like your knuckles. We tend to over exaggerate how big the curve is, but on yours, I would definitely try to keep it more. Honestly, this is one of those scenarios where less is more. Where oftentimes when you look at the reference, you'll see it's actually very little bumps, and they're not that exaggerated, but it gives the impression of the hand so much more in the end, even with like little changes. And actually this should probably be a little lower too. And obviously I think going to try the shading on your final two, I think it actually helped your hands because it made you go a little quicker. And I think it started to help you see proportions better because you were lining up where shadows are going. I do think, honestly, with studies like this, I wouldn't focus too much on the wrinkles, unless if you have like everything shaded out, everything feels laid out and good. I would definitely focus more on like your laying out your fundamental or like your proportions, your loose lines first. 2, adding more of your structure. 3, doing your values. And then if you have time, then do like your detailing and highlights. Because to me, it looks like you kind of skipped the 3rd stage of adding your values. And that's why it looks a little strange because you have a lot of details, but there isn't those shadows and light sources to help define the shapes. You actually did do the finger thing that I keep looking at for everyone. But I think for yours, I would definitely work on adding those values before adding wrinkles. And if anything, for studies, I might even challenge you to not do the details and really try to push yourself on values. And I think that will really help you with your overall look to your stuff, because then you can start to see where to add details on top of that, because I think you're eager to add those details. And I think the 3rd one kind of repeats what I'm saying, where I think you're trying to do all the little details, but I would keep focusing on the shadows first and really try to capture that. And then same with the thumb or any type of nail, try to add that little peak on above the cuticle and make it a bit darker, because having just a pure light nail can make it look like a fake nail or a press-on nail or a nail that doesn't look as realistic. So yeah, that would be my challenge to you, Fem. And thank you for submitting. Hi, last one. Yeah, there were a lot. Thank you, guys.
Yeah, this is great. Lucas21 says only did 1 today.
Oh, that's it? Perfect. Okay. So on yours, you actually did do the shading on the nails, which I like. They're almost just a hair too dark. It almost looks like they're painted on, but I would keep the value of the nail on. If anything, I would make the actual finger a bit darker, and that might make the nail look a bit more natural in terms of the value that you went with it. And same with up here. Overall proportions are pretty good. I think the thickness, this needs to be a little longer, and maybe even down here. Just pull it down. And same with this one. Like that. And then maybe these feel a bit long too. So yeah, I would just give a little more thickness to the rectangle. And it feels like out of all your fingers, the thumb probably was the biggest struggle for you. Just because it looks like, I think the biggest thing with thumbs and why they're hard to do is because they do have a little bit of a thickness on this part, the other side of the knuckle, and it has a hint, and you did the hint here, but then the point has to be really defined. And I think yours just feels a little too soft, and I think that's what throws off the rest of the thumb here. And then the nail bed, I feel like maybe it's a little too long. But for the most part, I would say this is a pretty successful submission. Let me see what that looks like on and off. So you can see how just like little adjustments and fine tuning can help. But this is another thing where just look at your drawing from afar before you start rendering and start adding value. And if you need to erase, if you need to edit, definitely do it before you start shading, or else you're going to be rendering something that is misproportioned. And actually, now that I'm looking at it, even this finger should be pointed in a bit more rather than pointing kind of straight out. See how this one has almost straight up and then bends out this way a little bit? I think same thing with yours, but it kind of goes just straight up. So I would just bend it almost straight and then bend it at the end. Okay, that is the last one. That was a lot of entries there. Oh, that was an hour of just critiques. Oh my gosh, that was a lot. Well, thank you for hanging out with us this entire time if you've stayed. If you could please leave a like before you leave, that way it helps the whole YouTube algorithm stuff. And next week we'll be doing another study. I don't know what it will be yet. I'll probably let you guys know sometime early next week, but it'll definitely be another one of these where it's a 90-minute study, maybe a 10-minute warm-up beforehand, followed by a critique. So yeah, thank you, Josh, for joining us today.
Of course. It was actually really fun today. I feel like we had so many interesting talks.
Yeah, this was definitely more of like a therapy session for everyone involved than
Nice.
anything else. But anyways, thank you so much for coming, and hopefully we'll see you next Wednesday. And if not, you can check out the discussion below on the Discord. And yeah, that's all I got. Okay, take care, everyone. Bye.